Chapter 276, The Big Picture. The Snow Dragon Island, the Keel Clan. In the main hall, roughly about 10 of the leaders of the Snow Dragon Island were being sincerely obedient. No one dared to do anything reckless under Yi Tianmo's scrutinized, gloomy gaze. They were afraid that if they irritated Yi Tianmo, something bad would happen. After Yi Yan and Wu Ku both felt Yi Tianmo's terrifying soul power, they both looked at Linda, using their facial demeanors to ask if she knew Shi Yang's real identity. Either Yi Yan or Wu Ken, they were both very experienced. They could see that Yi Tianmo always followed Shi Yang's orders, which frightened them a lot. They instinctively guessed that Shi Yang's identity wasn't one of an ordinary origin. Even though Linda and Shi Yang had earlier known each other for a period of time, she didn't really know about Shi Yang's origin. At this moment, as she saw how the powerful Yi Tianmo unhesitatingly followed Shi Yang's every command and moves, she then obviously knew that Shi Yang was not just an ordinary person. She couldn't help but ask him. Shi Yang was standing in the middle of the hall. Waiting until Yi Tianmo had gotten total control of the situation, he gently spoke to Linda with a smile. Just consider me as a member of the Yang family. The Yang family. Everyone's faces changed dramatically. Linda's pupils shrank. She nodded sadly. I should have known it before. Since after we've parted, I should have figured it out when I saw that you and the Azura King Muo Duanhun left while riding the blue-blood devilish bat. But I was not very sure about it. Now, it is certain. After Shi Yang spoke of his origin, Yi Yan and Wu Ku both looked very worried with strange countenances. The Yang family of the Kiara Sea were famous for their defiant demeanors. The Kiara Sea and the Hengluo Sea were not far from each other. Previously, the Three Gods sect and the Yang family had often fought with each other. They were archenemies. The Snow Dragon Island was the outer force of the Three Gods sect. The clans on this island would not be unfamiliar with the Yangs. They surely knew how tremendous the Yang family's forces were. What do you come to Snow Dragon Island for? Yi Yan sat on a chair, pretended to be calm, lifting a cup of water, took a sip and then worriedly said, 2 years ago, many forces came to occupy the Kiara Sea and fought with the Yang family. But, the Three Gods sect didn't want to involve in those matters. Even if you wanted to take revenge, you still shouldn't find us. Right after Yi Yan had finished his words, other people in the hall crazily responded, and hastily pled for themselves. They said that both the Three God sect and the Yang family didn't have any conflicts recently, or they were only the Three God sect's outer force, that they didn't know of the situation between the two sects clearly. After all, they just wanted to prove their innocence and hoped that Shi Yang would just give them a slap on the wrist. Shi Yang Ge, you have now arrived at the Snow Dragon Island. Does it possibly mean that you probably want to? Linda clenched her fists tightly, gritted her teeth, and angrily looked at Shi Yang. If you want to deal with us, I will bear hatreds towards you for my whole, entire life. Shi Yang then burst into laughter. He shook his head and said with an eccentric complexion, What are you thinking? As I was on my way, en passant, I just then decided to stop by to visit you without other intentions, then simply be on my way. Any other worries that you might have, should all be unfounded. The other people in the hall all released a sigh of relief. Not to mention that the Three Gods sect didn't have any past conflicts with the Yang family. Even if the sect did so, as having regards for you, I would not fight with the Keel clan. To prevent Linda from thinking too much, Shi Yang continued with a smile, I come here to visit you, to see if you are doing well. Linda's face was full of emotions. She seemed to be touched. Yi Yan surprisingly looked at Shi Yang, then quietly raked his eyes towards Linda. He seemed to see something strange here. His eyes then gradually brightened up. Actually, during this time, the Keel clan were encountering some difficult unsolved problems that had recently been plaguing them. Yi Yan was feeling utterly miserable, full of anxiety, as he couldn't find any solutions yet. Right now, he just suddenly found out that his daughter seemed to have a good relationship with Shi Yang, yet he couldn't help but have a thought that. Yi Yan contemplated consciously for a while, then burst into laughter. His chubby body then shambled out of his chair. He lifted a glass of wine in his hand, and said with a pink face, Shi Yang, my boy, if you don't have any further bothers, please take a seat and have a glass of wine. How does this sound? Shi Yang was bewildered, He wanted to refuse him. But Shi Yang just saw Linda's expecting eyes looking towards him as though she was begging him to accept the invitation. After being a little startled, Shi Yang slightly nodded to Yi Yan with a faint smile. "All right. Sit down please." Yi Yan hurriedly moved forward to welcome Shi Yang. He personally arranged Shi Yang's seat by himself. His behavior was so servile that it looked as if he was flattering Shi Yang. As Linda saw her father's eager and servile behavior, she instinctively knew what was in his mind. She originally wanted to remind him of not doing it, but as she thought about the complicated problems that they were facing today, she quietly let out a sigh and cast away that intention. She just felt a little embarrassing, looking at Shi Yang as if she wanted to say that he shouldn't blame her for that. Shi Yang lightly nodded to her as well, implicating that he didn't mind. After sitting down together with Yi Tianmo, Shi Yang picked a green snake fruit and didn't say anything. He then took a homely bite, chewing, and mumbled to himself, "It doesn't taste bad." Ha ha ha. Yi Yan kept laughing aimlessly and didn't hurry to talk. He waved at Linda, signaling her to sit down next to Shi Yang. He waited until Linda had sat down on Shi Yang's left side, then pretended to ask unintentionally, "I don't know where you are from. Thing is, the Kiara C's situation is now very complicated. Do you know what's going on?" This was what Shi Yang was concerned about the most. Shaking his head, Shi Yang's face became more serious. He said, "To be honest, I am not from the Kiara Sea. I left there for a while, and have just now come back. Can I ask how the situation over there is?" As Yi Yan had soon known that Shi Yang was not from the Kiara Sea, he didn't feel strange after hearing of it. He just whined with a miserable voice, "The Kiara Sea has fallen." Shi Yang's eyes were slightly half-closed. 2 years ago, not long after young families disappeared, the demon dwellers of the 4th demon area came to the Kiara Sea. In only 1 year, they already occupied the entire Kiara Sea. As of now, the Kiara Sea belongs to the demon dwellers of the 4th demon area. Yi Yan shook his head with a miserable gesture as if the demon dwellers had devastated, dominated, and obliterated his entire family. "I've known that this would happen," Shi Yang said with a cold smile. At first, forces from everywhere in the Kiara Sea had united. After knowing that the 2 demon kings were confining the head of the Yang family, they have allied with the demon dwellers to deal with the Yang family, which left them no other choice but to retreat to other places. As the result, the gate of heaven that was linked to the 4th demon area had no defensive forces. Moreover, they even had a ridiculous thought, which was free trade with the demon dwellers. Right now, the demon's dwellers are invading on a bigger scale. They will then swallow the entire Kiara Sea piece by piece. Those people have reaped as they had sowed. That serves them right. Yi Yan's hands were trembling with shame. He then embarrassingly wiped his sweat away, forced a smile and said, "Our Hengluo Sea is just next to the Kiara Sea. The Snow Dragon Island is not very far from the Kiara Sea either. Recently, I've heard that the demon dwellers of the 4th demon area is considering to attack the Hengluo Sea. This is..." Shi Yang glanced at him, feeling a bit weird. "You belong to the 3 Gods sect, so the 3 Gods sect will have the solutions itself. Perhaps the Jiyu family and the Heaven Lake Divine Land have started to negotiate with the 3 Gods sect. Anyway, they haven't attacked here yet. Why do you need to be in such a rush? It's just that they haven't attacked yet. But once they are here, it will be already too late." Wu Ku forced a smile, shaking his head. He wasn't arrogant anymore. Linda sat next to Shi Yang, bowed her head without saying anything. She just quietly listened while her hands were tightly clenched. She then seemingly felt a little tensed. "Let me tell you the truth, my good boy. I have been informed that in another month, the demon dwellers will likely start to intrude into the Hengluo Sea from the Kiara Sea. And in 2 months max, the demon dwellers will come to the Snow Dragon Island." Yi Yan was contemplating for a while before continuing with grimaced face. "That means that our Snow Dragon Island only have about 2 months left." Shi Yang was astonished and said straight away, "So, you should relocate somewhere else soon. Would you want to defend the Snow Dragon Island to death?" "What did the 3 Gods sect say?" "You are considered the outer forces of the 3 Gods sect, so won't they just abandon you? It's like this, Yi Yen was a little bit ashamed. He murmured softly the crux that they were facing. After having recently known that the demon dwellers at the Kiara Sea had the intentions of invading the Hengluo Sea, Yi Yen and Wu Ku had immediately asked for the Three Gods sect's opinion. The Three Gods sect suggested that the outer forces should temporarily leave their islands and go to the adjacent islands of the Three Gods sect's headquarters, and prepared all of the forces to fight with the demon dwellers of the Fourth Demon Area. Some forces of the other seas would send their high-class warriors to take guards at the Three Gods sect, the Jiyu family, and the Heaven Lake Divine Land. They would then ally with each other to fight against the demon dwellers depending on the demon dwellers' offensive strategy. After the Three Gods sect had given out their command, Yi Yen and his people had then encountered a big problem. At this point in time, the sea was boisterously rough. The windstorms and tsunamis there were the most terrifying in the Hengluo Sea. Boats sailing under these conditions were in extreme danger. They would be dashed to pieces and people would die even if they were being just a little careless. Departing from the Snow Dragon Island towards the Three Gods sect's headquarters, they would have to sail across the sea called the Chaotic Wind Sea, where the typhoons and tsunamis were extremely horrendous at this time of the season. The three big clans on the Snow Dragon Island had limited abilities. They could only use boats in order to move or travel. Thus crossing the Chaotic Wind Sea was entirely unavoidable. However, the three big clans only had roughly about 10 Nirvana Realm warriors. With that small of a number of high-class warriors, it wasn't sure that they could protect all the boats in crossing the Chaotic Wind Sea. Therefore, they did not dare to move yet. From what Yi Yen had said, it meant that if there were the Sky Realm warriors' help, together with their Nirvana Realm warriors, it would be more certain that their boats would safely cross the Chaotic Wind Sea. They had informed the Three Gods sect of the situation at hand, and received the reply that they should wait for the Sky Realm warriors to come, but if those warriors couldn't come in on time, they then had to take the risks in crossing the Chaotic Wind Sea. The Three Gods sect had many of the outer forces. There should be at least hundreds of islands similar to this Snow Dragon Island. Therefore, even if the Three Gods sect willingly sent out their Sky Realm warriors to help, it was not sure that those warriors would lay their eyes on the Snow Dragon Island as their abilities were unfortunately limited. If they waited for those high-class warriors to come, their departure time would be accordingly delayed, which could lead to the results that they would probably fall into the demon dwellers' hands and would obviously face the severe murderous onslaught that was to ensue afterward. The Three Gods sect had given a deadline that was sent out to their warriors. Even though that deadline was coming close, with only a few days left, none of the Sky Realm warriors appeared to give assistance. Therefore, Yi Yen and the others were impatiently anxious. They immediately started to discuss if they should then take risks in crossing the Chaotic Wind Sea. On the Snow Dragon Island, besides the three big clans, there were also other small forces of warriors, around hundreds of warriors with different levels, as well as roughly about tens of thousands of ordinary citizens. Without the Sky Realm warriors' protection, no one could tell how many of them would survive after taking the risks to cross the Chaotic Wind Sea. This was the crux that Yi Yen and the other people on the Snow Dragon Island were facing right now. After the warriors on this island including Yi Yen had been repressed by Yi Tianmo's soul power, they were instantly sure that Yi Tianmo was definitely a Sky Realm warrior, thus, they had a thought of hope that Yi Tianmo could help protect them. However, Shi Yang was from the Yang family, and the Yang family and the Three Gods sect had a conflict since long ago. Though these people still had the intentions in asking for Shi Yang's help, although they knew that there was not a lot of hope in doing so. But the situation now was very urgent and dangerous. Time was of the essence. If they continued waiting, the situation would become more perilous. That was why they finally decided to ask Shi Yang directly. Shi Yang sat quietly while deliberately drinking tea. His eyes swept over Yi Yen and his people with a calm face. After Yi Yen had told him of the current situation, Shi Yang obviously understood what they wanted. They all displayed a sincere look while waiting for Shi Yang's decision. Right at this moment, a small hand was suddenly placed on his thigh, gently fondling his thigh and slowly moving towards his privates. Shi Yang was shaken, feeling that his winky was now erected and felt extremely pleasurable. He couldn't help but bow his head and slightly utter a sound. He then turned his head around to glance at Linda, who was sitting next to him. Linda bowed her head with her flushed face and didn't dare to look at Shiyang. But her small hand didn't stop moving either. Instead, it continued stroking his winky, bringing him a wonderfully mesmerizing sensation. Yi Yen, Wu Ku, and all the other people in front of him were intensely looking at him with begging faces. He didn't expect that Linda dared to stroke his winky in front of the other people. But this brought him a great feeling of pleasurable satisfaction. Under the others' scrutinized eyes, Shiyang's eyes were half closed as if he was knitting his eyebrows to think. But, in fact, he was quietly enjoying. This girl was really daring. A smiling look beamed out from the corner of his mouth, but he still didn't say anything yet. He knew Linda's intentions but wasn't in a hurry to expose his attitude. Instead, he continued to enjoy himself. This, Yi Yen didn't know of his daughter's deed. He was waiting in silence. However, after a while, as Shiyang still said nothing, he couldn't be any more patient and was about to ask Shiyang again. Suddenly, Shiyang's erected winky was then tightly squeezed by Linda's small hand. Ah! He felt a little pain and couldn't help but scream out a soft sound, secretly blaming the girl for treating it too hard. As he knew that Linda was impatiently anxious, Shiyang pretended that he was contemplating a little bit, softly dry coughed and then said with a smile, "This is simple. I will find some people to help you solve this problem. Since you want to leave the Snow Dragon Island, I will help you manage it for a while." Yi Yen's eyes brightened. Wu Ku hadn't originally been very amicable with Shiyang, but right now, he was also very excited, suddenly stood up and smilingly said, "Are you willing to help us?" "Just a small thing." Shiyang smiled wickedly, glancing at Linda on his side, implicating that he had fulfilled her wish. Linda's face glowed, let out a sigh but still didn't dare to raise her head. Her hand continued moving, stroking his winky more devotedly as if she wanted to pay back what he had done for them. "Ah, the Kiara Sea has been invaded. How about the evil Wonderland and the Xia family?" Shiyang both enjoyed and asked. After the Yang family had disappeared, the Xia family was still being crushed by the evil Wonderland. When the Yang family had lost, the Xia family also got nothing. Many of their islands were also invaded. The head of the Xia family's former generation became mentally ill and never showed up. Thus, the evil Wonderland became more and more defiant. They even had the intentions to evict the Xia family out of the Kiara Sea. This time, Wu Ku stood up and smilingly explained to Shiyang what was happening there. He seemed to understand well of the situation at the Kiara Sea. The evil Wonderland originally wanted to take advantage of the marriage between Xie Kuei and Xia Xinyan to tie up the Xia family into their battle. Xia Xinyan still persistently closed the door to cultivate, which was an excuse for the Xia family to delay the marriage. Eventually, the evil Wonderland started to be impatient and offended the Xia family constantly. Before the Demon Dweller's intrusion, the Xia family's power at the Kiara Sea had already been decreased a lot. They were too far away to be the evil Wonderland's match. After the Demon Dwellers had invaded, the Xia family knew that they could hardly resist the Demon Dwellers. As the family's forces had been greatly lost, the Xias decisively retreated as soon as the Demon Dwellers arrived. Before many more of the Demon Dwellers' warriors came, the Xia family had left everything at the Kiara Sea and wisely advanced towards the Hengluo Sea, and temporarily stayed in some of the islands in the middle of the Jiyu family and the evil Wonderland. Thanks to the Xia family's discernment, their people could then be able to avoid the great oncoming disaster, limited their losses and conserved the number of warriors. Only the unconcerned outer forces had been left behind at the Kiara Sea. The evil Wonderland was different. After the Yang family's disappearance and Xia family's depression, their forces ferociously expanded. They then became the first dominator of the Kiara Sea with a number of resourceful islands much more than the number of islands that the Yang family had possessed before. Even though the Demon Dwellers had come, they didn't want to leave behind their assets at the Kiara Sea, which they had been fighting hard to acquire. So, the battle finally had to happen. The evil Wonderland then quickly realized the Demon Dwellers' terrifying strength. It only took about 3 months for those Demon Dwellers to entirely destroy the evil Wonderland and slaughter more than half of the evil Wonderland's warriors. When the 2 demon masters under Bo Zun went to the evil Wonderland together, it meant that the evil Wonderland was done. Facing the overwhelming forces of the demon dwellers, the head of the evil wonderland had a decision that made the entire forces of the Kiara Sea feel disgraced. The evil wonderland had surrendered. After that, the evil wonderland became one of the demon dwellers' forces, turned into their hounds, disclosing all the information and arrangements of the Kiara Sea's forces as well as their long-term understanding about all the warriors of the Kiara Sea. Holding the evil wonderland in their hands as well as having a thorough understanding of the Kiara Sea, the demon dwellers at the Kiara Sea then harvested an abundance of resources, which couldn't be found anywhere else. Their strengths then increased extremely fast. Many of the demon dwellers then had consequently broken through the realms with booming forces. Their abilities were then enhanced with every single passing day. The evil wonderland is so shameful. Shi Yang's face was serious, cold light beamed out from his eyes. These disloyal people, as they have betrayed us before, they can certainly betray the entire Kiara Sea. After clearly knowing the current situation of the Kiara Sea from Wu Ku, Shi Yang somehow felt satisfied. Your 3 clans should start preparing to leave. When you are ready, some of my people will come and help you. After contemplating for a while, Shi Yang knitted his eyebrows looking at Yi En and Wu Ku. I will keep my words. Remember to bring all of the ordinary residents of the Snow Dragon Island. Understood. Yi En and Wu Ku nodded. You guys can leave to prepare now. Shi Yang waved his hand with his impatient face. Linda had already sat decently again without moving her hand anymore, just her face was still flushed, which looked very charming and mesmerizing. As Yi En and Wu Ku had gotten Shi Yang's promise, their faces loosened a little. Their attitude towards Shi Yang was very respectful. They all stood up and left the main hall after Shi Yang's promise. Before Yi En left, he had given a quick glance at Linda as if he wanted to know more about the relationship between Shi Yang and his daughter. From Linda's blushed face, Yi En seemed to figure out something. He didn't scold at her, but instead, he felt secretly cheerful and fully satisfied. Yi Tianmo waited until everyone had left the hall, then slowly stood up and spoke to Shi Yang with a gentle voice. I am going out to take a walk. If something happens, you just need to call me. Shi Yang knew Yi Tianmo had seen Linda's secretive deed, thus, he asked to have a walk as an excuse to give him more freedom. Therefore, Shi Yang nodded with a smile. Okay. Bother you again. I should do it. Yi Tianmo turned around and left, disappearing just in a blink. Shi Yang had reminded Yi Tianmo of not calling him master in front of the other people. Yi Tianmo also felt that this way of addressing Shi Yang sounded a little intimidating, thus he followed Shi Yang's instruction. That person is a little strange. The aura from his body is a little different from ours. Linda said after Yi Tianmo had left the main hall. Then, she asked with her reddened face, did he see what I've just previously done? No. Shi Yang burst into laughter, immediately embraced Linda, placing her on his thigh, and lightly groaned out, you have provoked me for so long. Now, this is my turn. Hehe, I am not afraid of you. Linda's mood and body were then both excited, her watery eyes were full of lust. Shi Yang temporarily stayed with the Keel clan. He waited for both of the big clans on this Snow Dragon Island to leave and also heard of the Kiara Sea's situation from Linda. For 2.5 years, the biggest incident of the Kiara Sea was the Demon Dwellers' invasion. When the Demon Dwellers had intruded into the Kiara Sea for real, all the forces of the Kiara Sea just then realized that targeting the Yang family had been such a stupid move. The cruelty of the Demon Dwellers surpassed their imaginations. After the Kiara Sea had fallen into the Demon Dwellers' hands, each of Kiara Sea's forces felt extremely insecure. They were afraid that the Demon Dwellers would barge into their sea on any given day. Because of their fear of the common enemy, they had then quickly started to unite. Leaders from every direction had constantly met and discussed with each other to figure out a solution to deal with the Demon Dwellers. However, conflicts always existed among these forces. Some of them, who were quite far away from the Kiara Sea, had the intentions of letting the other forces act as a buffer in consuming the Demon Dwellers' power, thus they didn't put all of their efforts together in defeating this common enemy. The starting point was good, but once it was implemented, it exposed many conflicts between them. Even though having been invaded by the Demon Dwellers, these forces still couldn't change the selfishness of the humankind. They always had a thought that they shouldn't be the vanguards, instead, they should preserve their strengths and forces. They would never shed tears without seeing a coffin. It was said that the leaders of those forces had always argued and quarreled whenever they had met without finalizing any perfect solutions. And so on, when they weren't ready yet for their attacks, on the contrary, the demon dwellers had already taken action. At the Keel clan's place, Shi Yang was sitting straight on top of the highest floor of a delicate 3-floor pavilion. He slowly relaxed his mind and spirit with a secured countenance. He was studying the magic of the soul of the demonic Sound clan. In the last 3 days, he had stayed with the Keel clan. Yi Tian Mo was in charge of protecting him. People of the 3 big clans here had always been busy, collecting their accumulating properties, assigning high-class warriors to different missions, arranging for ordinary people, etc. After several times of lustful pleasures and having his sexual desires satisfied, Shi Yang and Linda started to regain their composures. Having Yi Tian Mo on his side, Shi Yang had chances to ask him about some of the soul secrets of the demonic Sound clan, which he hadn't thoroughly understood before. Since the incident in the forest when Yi Tian Mo had seen Shi Yang's cruelty, his attitude towards Shi Yang had greatly changed. He seemed to treat Shi Yang more honestly and always devotedly helped him as much as he could regardless of any matters. Therefore, Shi Yang's perception of the spiritual Upanishads in the demonic Sound clan scriptures had been rapidly improved. The sea of consciousness then rippled out many waves of the sea, which were like silk fibers, quietly gathered at the host soul's place. The host soul was being wrapped by more and more of the soul consciousnesses. Shi Yang's feelings were then expanded everywhere. In the sea of consciousness, the 5 devils had been recently very quiet. After the host soul entered and Shi Yang didn't use any of his negative forces, as the 5 devils seemed to sense the host soul's repressive force, they didn't dare to have any further reckless actions. As of now, Shi Yang's soul consciousness constantly kept condensing and gathering at the host soul's place. He vaguely felt that he was able to control the 5 devils, thus, he suddenly had an idea. His consciousness started to move towards the host soul and conducted the 5 devils through the host soul. Shortly thereafter, strong winds and massive waves surged up within the sea of consciousness. The 5 devils inside of the sea of consciousness turned into 5 flows of black lights flying out of the sea of consciousness. A tremendous flow of wicked, crude, desperate aura flowed out from inside of the pavilion. 5 ferocious 10-jong-tall devils floated around in the sky right above the pavilion. Their bodies shot out fluctuating souls, which then brought the people into everlasting sorrows. Shi Yang's body suddenly shriveled. Negative forces from the meridians streamed out and then violently poured into the 5 devils. Although the 5 devils' bodies had been originally ambiguous, they now gradually condensed into unknown substances and emitted more and more horrendous aura. "Master, be careful." Yi Tian Mo's face changed in fear. He looked at the 5 devils floating in the air with a stupefied face, and horribly screamed out, "What is this spirit skill? Its aura is very terrifying. This is the soul's power condensing into substances." Shi Yang opened his eyes, frigidly looked at the 5 ferocious devils floating in the sky. He raised his arm and shouted, "Come back." The 5 devils wriggled and seemingly didn't want to go back. However, Shi Yang coldly harumphed and projected a stream of burning heaven flame from his hand. The 5 devils that had escaped from the sea of consciousness instantly felt frightened just now, didn't dare to protest against Shi Yang anymore and swayed a little bit before diminishing. Just in a short time, the 5 devils again turned into different flows of black lights and disappeared into Shi Yang's body. Shi Yang took a deep breath. His chilled-to-the-bone eyes were gradually restored to its normal state. He released a sigh after a long while, then said, "I know you are afraid of the heaven flame." Yi Tian Mo also stayed away from him, as he felt a little nervous whenever Shi Yang emitted the heaven flame. The heaven flame was Yi Tian Mo's fatal nemesis. Shi Yang retrieved the heaven flame in his hand, then said with a smile, "It is just the burning fire of the 1000 earth flame. Although this burning fire is tempered by icy objects, still, it is very intimidating. If it was the 9 serenities' soul-devouring flame, those 5 devils will be truly terrified. Regretfully, That 9 serenity's soul-devouring flame still cannot be subdued yet. Master, are the 5 living souls that you projected condensed by using the soul power? Yi Tianmo asked in fear. Master, you are only ranked at the Earth realm. Even with the profound knowledge of the spiritual Upanishads of the demonic Sound clan, it is still difficult for us to perceive it that fast. How can it be so simple just to rely on the soul power to condense it into living souls? Yi Tianmo still couldn't believe that this fact was true no matter what. Taking the soul as a conducting object to condense it into living souls was an extremely scholarly spirit skill which had been written down in the secret scriptures of the demonic Sound clan. In order to cultivate this spirit skill, besides the highly adept soul capacity, it was necessary to have reached the God realm, otherwise, it would be nearly impossible to do so. Even Yi Tianmo, who was ranked at the first sky of the spirit realm and possessed a profound soul capacity, wasn't able to do so just yet. Being ranked at the Earth realm and relying only on some of the demonic Sound clan's secret scriptures, Shi Yang already could use the soul power to condense it into living souls. The word genius wouldn't be enough to describe this. Did you say the 5 devils? Shi Yang was startled, but then explained with a smile, it isn't related to the spiritual Upanishads of the demonic Sound clan. Before I had your demonic Sound clan's soul secret scriptures, my sea of consciousness had condensed into these 5 devils. Yi Tianmo was shocked with his eyes and mouth wide opened. He looked at Shi Yang as if he was looking at a monster. After a long while, Yi Tianmo let out a sigh and respectfully said, "Luckily, I've made a right decision. If we had killed you in the first place, I think our demonic Sound clan would have disappeared altogether from this world." Yi Tianmo was a little frightened. Shi Yang stood up while waving his hand, implicating that he didn't mind it. After he felt that the 5 devils weren't restless anymore, he immediately walked to the window, looked down at Yi En's people of the Keel clan gathering there and said hastily, "I am very sorry. An unexpected thing happened while I was cultivating. Now, everything is all right. You guys don't need to be worried any further." All the Keel clan's people looked pale. They were so frightened that even their hearts were trembling. These people, who only had normal cultivation base or didn't even know how to use any of the spirit skills, had suddenly realized some horrifying commotions that appeared on the floor where Shi Yang was staying. They had even thought that the demon dwellers had already come. If the 5 devils hadn't disappeared in time, they wouldn't have even dared to move any closer to the pavilion like this. Yi En was standing from a distance. After hearing Shi Yang's words, he wiped his sweat away, immediately clasped his hands towards Shi Yang and said, "All right. So, I won't bother you anymore." After finishing his words, Yi En signaled for his people to leave. They all left instantaneously. "Master, I would like to request the advice from you about the secrets in condensing those living souls." Waiting until everyone had left, Yi Tianmo contemplated for a while before asking with a little embarrassment. "I have also recently studied this. Regretfully, there have been no improvements. I am very curious, your 5 devils had been formed based on what? From different negative feelings inside of me." Shi Yang frowned and didn't hide or clarify it either. Negative feelings? Yi Tianmo was amazed. These negative feelings can be reinforced through cultivations? I haven't heard about this before. Master, can you constantly increase negative forces so that the condensed 5 living souls can also keep being intensified? Theoretically, it should be so. Shi Yang nodded. Yi Tianmo's eyes lit up a strange light. His face then became very eccentric. What? Shi Yang felt a little bit weird with Yi Tianmo's expressions. Is it very strange to do so? I feel that it was just a normal occurrence. Yi Tianmo took a deep breath, he then said frighteningly after a while, "Master, really, you are such a breathtaking genius. I really admire you now. Even though I can't figure it out yet, but your ability is something that ordinary people like us are not able to understand indeed. What is it after all? Only the God Realm warriors who can condense living souls are able to constantly enhance themselves, and that their abilities keep transforming non-stop." Yi Tianmo stared at Shi Yang with his bizarre sparkling eyes, speaking clearly word by word. Shi Yang looked as if he had been dramatically shaken. After that, he beamed out a smile from the corner of his mouth. He rubbed his head while speaking, Ha ha ha, my ability is not too bad after all. Until now, he just understood the frightening aspects of this spirit skill of the 5 devils in the Sea of Mind. It was indeed the spirit skill from the blood vein ring, which could really shock the others. Yi Tian-mo had seemingly wanted to explain something more, but he suddenly frowned and closed his eyes. A feeble fluctuating soul spread out on Yi Tian-mo's body entirely. A flow of a new soul slowly came in from far away, wrapping around Yi Tian-mo's body, quietly communicating with him. Closing his eyes, Yi Tian-mo sensed it for a while, and then suddenly said, "Kaba and the other people are encountering some troubles. Several warriors have appeared at their place. They've found out Kaba. It seems they even know of your human girls. Kaba asks for your opinion if he should kill them." "They know the girls?" Shi Yang was startled. His mind flickered right away. He was sure that those people should be the warriors from the Kiara Sea. After contemplating a little bit, Shi Yang directly commanded, "Regardless of whom they are, just arrest them first. The appearances of the Wings race and ours are very different. If they spread out the rumors, there will be a lot of unwanted troubles." "Understood." Yi Tian-mo nodded, closed his eyes and transmitted the message to the other end. At this time, Yi En suddenly appeared again. He stood 10 meters away from Shi Yang and said, "I've just been informed that some people have come to help us. They are people from the Jiyu family and the Heaven Lake Divine Land. As they are on their way to the headquarter of the 3 Gods sect to discuss some important matters, they have been also assigned to help us." "The Jiyu family? The Heaven Lake Divine Land?" Shi Yang's face was strange. "When will they come? I've heard that they will arrive today." "Ha ha ha, so, thank you for your goodwill, my good boy. I don't think we need to bother you anymore," Yi En said all of a sudden. "No need to bother me." Shi Yang was joyful. "It cannot be better. You should wait for them to help you then. I also feel less worried." Chapter 277 Rooting. In the vast, immense forest, countless trees covered the sky and the ground. Even the sunlight at noon could hardly pierce through the lush and dense foliage of those trees. The people of the demonic Sound clan and the Wings race all stayed under the trees' shades with leisurely manners, deliberately raised their heads and talked to each other joyfully. The 2 leaders Di Shan and Yu Ru had pulled Duo Mao to the side under an ancient tree's shade and whispered something to each other. Duo Mao was obviously a little bit frightened in front of Di Shan and Yu Ru. He always honestly nodded with any words or assignments that were ordered by Di Shan and Yu Ru without daring to disobey them. Kaba and Ya Meng slightly closed their eyes while communicating with Yi Tian-mo at the other side of the Snow Dragon Island to ask for Shi Yang's opinion. Not long after that, Kaba and Ya Meng received his response. Then, they waved their hands signaling the demonic Sound clan's warriors behind them to take action. 30 high-class Sky Realm warriors of the demonic Sound clan quickly advanced towards the 7 human warriors and surrounded them. A flow of attacking soul-like silk fibers covered those 7 human warriors just in a blink. Under these rippling waves of souls, all 7 of them then held their heads, plumping down on the ground and screaming out. The light in their eyes gradually became gloomier. "Lady." One bald warrior among them, who had some small arrow tattoos on his head, gazed at Jiyu Ling Lung standing not far away from there with his red eyes and shouted, "Who are these guys?" Jiyu Ling Lung slightly released a sigh, then helplessly talked to her family's Sky Realm warrior. "Uncle Hua Meng, you don't need to save us. Don't risk your life to fight. It's useless." "Holy Maiden." An elderly woman with many wrinkles on her face was holding her crutch, leaning on a trunk and shivering. She looked at Chu Yang-ching from a distance. Being scrutinized by that elderly woman, Chu Yang-ching shook her head helplessly, signaling her not to resist. The elderly woman's body trembled. She let out a dispirited sigh, became obedient, and stopped the useless protest. Among the 7 warriors, except for Hua Meng with the small arrow tattoos and the elder woman Huang Nan of the Heaven Lake Divine Land, the rest of the 5 warriors were at the Nirvana realm. All of them came from the Heaven Lake Divine Land and the Jiyu family. This time, they were going to the headquarters of the 3 Gods sect to discuss the plan to unitedly deal with the demon dwellers. They had received the information from the 3 Gods sect when they were on the way. as they had been informed that the Snow Dragon Island were encountering some problems, so they stopped by to help the people on this island. However, as soon as they had arrived at the island, the elderly woman realized that this thick forest was not normal, as she could feel the aura of some low-level warriors of the Wings race and the demonic Sound clan. Therefore, the 7 of them couldn't help but come here to check. After having crossed through the dense forest, they finally met the people of the Wings race and the demonic Sound clan, and almost right after that, they saw Jiyu Ling Lung and Chu Yangqing. Jiyu Ling Lung was the hope of the Jiyu family's new generation. Chu Yangqing was the holy maiden of the Heaven Lake Divine Land. Both of them were the brilliant warriors of their forces. Although Hua Meng and Huang Nan had the Sky Realm cultivation base, together with the 5 Nirvana Realm warriors, they could still not have any advantages when facing the powerful people of the demonic Sound clan and the Wings race. Di Shan and Yu Ru didn't even take any actions nor glanced at those 7 warriors. They continued discussing matters that were related to the Grey Wings clan's patriarch position with Duo Mao. They then cast the mission of dealing with those 7 warriors to Kaba and Ya Meng. As Kaba and Ya Meng didn't know of these people's origins, they had immediately used their souls to send out the message to Yi Tianmo to ask for Shi Yang's opinion. After having received the response, they nodded their heads, and Hua Meng and Huang Nan became their prisoners, unsurprisingly in no time. Please do not eradicate them. Jiyu Ling Lung secretly gritted her teeth staring at Kaba and said, I have told them not to resist. Won't you stop using the soul oppression? Although the 7 of them had given up in opposing, the Sky Realm warriors of the demonic Sound clan still didn't receive the order from Kaba and Ya Meng to stop doing so, thus they continued using their violent soul oppression on these human warriors. In the range of 10 meters surrounding these 7 people, the mind-shaking soul oppression was still smothering the entire area. As they were stuck inside of this soul oppression, Hua Meng's and Huang Nan's bodies kept trembling, while the other 5 warriors tragically had already gushed out mouthfuls of blood. The demonic Sound clan's understanding of spiritual Upanishads was way too advanced than that of the human warriors. As soon as the Sea of Consciousness had been formed, many of the demonic Sound clan's people started to cultivate different pagan spirit skills. Their attacks were mostly aimed at their enemy's Sea of Consciousness and soul. This kind of attack was extremely terrifying, and easily destroyed their enemy's spirit. The 5 Nirvana Realm warriors bearing clearly proved that their Seas of Consciousness had been seriously harmed. If it continued like this, these 5 people would shortly collapse. Once their cultivation base perished, and the host soul was destroyed, they would be completely dead, no one could save them. Be obedient a little bit. Kaba coldly harumphed, then nodded with his Sky Realm warriors. Spare their lives for now. If anyone is rebellious, destroy their host soul right away. As these words came up, Hua Meng's and Huang Nan's faces turned pale, horrible light then beamed out from their eyes. Aiming at destroying their opponents' bodies was the essential attacking method of all the human high-class warriors in a battle at the Kiara Sea. They normally wouldn't attack their opponents' souls. Attacking soul, this was extremely terrifying. A normal Sky Realm warrior wouldn't just freely use the soul to fight no matter how much hatred they got. It was because once the attacking soul was used, it was difficult to stop. Both sides would easily fall into danger where their souls would be destroyed forever. If a body was seriously injured, or even slashed into pieces, it still could be hopefully revived. However, once the host soul was destroyed, the living mark would be completely deleted and the revival would be totally impossible. Therefore, this kind of soul fight rarely happened at the Kiara Sea. However, Hua Meng and Huang Nan were always oppressed by the soul attack after having arrived this island. Since the beginning, their Seas of Consciousness were occupied little by little. Actually, the demonic Sound clan had never attacked their opponents' bodies. This abnormal issue scared Hua Meng and Huang Nan out of their wits. They couldn't figure out what kind of people these pagans were after all. Don't even think about running away. Ya Meng burst into laughing, said, with the soul capacity of the 7 of you, if you have any thoughts of running away, you absolutely won't be able to escape from my soul sense. Let me warn you, even if you only just slightly move, I will immediately ruin your soul so that you know what soul and spirit both perished are. Hua Meng and Huang Nan were so terrified that they didn't dare to act recklessly anymore. They only looked at Jiyu Linglung and Chu Yangqing with astonishment, and seemingly wanted to know from their ladies who these pagans were. Heiser, we can't tell everything just by a few words. Jiyu Linglung's face looked miserable with full of depression and dreariness. As we entered the chasm battlefield this time, we've never met any good events, we even nearly lost our lives there. Jiyu Linglung softly told Hua Meng and Huang Nan about what they had gone through. Kaba and Ya Meng glanced at them with a look of utter despise, didn't prevent nor care about them. Instead, they continued to communicate with Yi Tianmo on the other side. The Keil clan. Shi Yang and Yi Tianmo were sitting still on the spot, didn't say anything further to Yi Yen. After having known that the Sky Realm warriors of the Jiyu family and the Heaven Lake Divine Land would arrive to help them, Yi Yen was very happy and busy with the arrangement. 3 days had passed by. All the forces on the Snow Dragon Island had eventually finished their preparations. Boats were ready. The ordinary residents of the island were all arranged to board the boats. Everything was ready, except for the east wind. Yi Yen and Wu Ku were waiting for the warriors of the Jiyu family and the Heaven Lake Divine Land to come. They had even sent their guys to find those warriors as they wanted to leave this island as soon as possible. Time was tight for them. After having received the message from Yi Tianmo, Kaba, Ya Meng, the other people hid deep inside of the forest and also activated the soul formation technique at the same time. Thus, the warriors of the Snow Dragon Island, who had been sent to find the warriors of Jiyu family and the Heaven Lake Divine Land, had to come back with nothing. Yi Yen and Wu Ku started to be worried and didn't know what was going on. They transmitted their messages to the Three Gods sect to ask, but the Three Gods sect had no information either. They only asked for Yi Yen and Wu Ku to continue to wait. But they had no more time to wait. Eventually, Yi Yen and Wu Ku had to come back to Shi Yang and begged him to send some escorts over to help them. No problem. Shi Yang excitedly replied. It will take around 10 days to sail from here to the chaotic wind sea. As you are ready, I will send my guys to the harbor to help you cross the chaotic wind sea safely. Shi Yang, thank you Ji. Linda chuckled, looking at Shi Yang with loving eyes. No problem. Shi Yang's expression was calm. You should leave now. When you arrive at the harbor, you will see my guys over there. Ah, are you sure there is no one left on this island? No. Everyone is leaving. Yi Yen nodded constantly, thought to himself, who dares to stay here? Is there anyone having the guts to fight against the demon dwellers? Linda, you should leave as well. I will temporarily stay on this Snow Dragon Island. But don't worry, I will go to the Three Gods sect, and I will meet with you there. Shi Yang comforted Linda. Linda nodded submissively and then left with Yi Yen. Wait until Yi Yen, Wu Ku, and their people left to go to the harbor. Shi Yang looked at Yi Tianmo, nodded and said, all right, you call our people to come here. From now on, the Snow Dragon Island is ours. Half of a day later, Di Shan, Yu Ru, and the pagans of the demonic Sound clan and the Wings race spread out from the forest, appearing at the adjacent cities and villages of the Keil clan's places. Houses, which had originally belonged to the three big clans, now became the shelters for the people of the demonic Sound clan and the Wings race. After having got out of that abandoned land, they finally had a rest stop for themselves. Bring them here. Shi Yang was standing on the top floor of the 3-level pavilion, gently commanding Yi Tianmo at his side. Not long after that, Hua Meng, Huang Nan and the other 5 warriors of the Jiyu family and the Heaven Lake Divine Land were escorted over. The group of Cao Zhilan, Chu Yangqing, and Jiyu Linglung also walked in. They all looked at Shi Yang with full of hatred and didn't know what he really wanted this time. Send the message to your leaders. Tell them that the Yang family's members have returned. Shi Yang looked at Hua Meng and Huang Nan and said with a smirk. He pointed at Di Shan, Yi Tianmo and continued, these are the Yang family's allies from the chasm battlefield. Tell your leaders if they still need and care about you, that they should come to the Snow Dragon Island. Chapter 278, Awaiting the Emperor. The Wind Cloud Island located in the middle of the 2 power ranges of the Jiyu family and the Heaven Lake Divine Land. The Jiyu family was in the east of the Hengluo Sea, while the Heaven Lake Divineland was in the east of the Blackwater Sea, and the Wing Cloud Island was in the middle of the two great seas, which were often ravaged by pirates since a long time ago. Because the heaven and earth spirit aura on the other adjacent islands around the Wind Cloud Island was quite diluted, it was hard to find any high-class warriors among the ordinary residents that were living there. Any warriors who had quite a high cultivation base would not stay there. Instead, they went to the other islands, which were under the control of either the Heaven Lake Divineland or the Jiyu family, to settle down. On the contrary, pirates often traversed these great seas. After they were done with their pillage in one sea, they didn't dare to appear there again. They would temporarily stop and hide on the other adjacent islands because, on one hand, they had to consume the spoils, on the other hand, they were waiting until everything calmed down before leaving. After the Shia family had left the Kiara Sea and put all of their efforts to move every member of their families, their stop was the nearby Wind Cloud Island. The small withered island, where only pirates bothered to step foot on, now became the rescuing shelter for the Shia family. It was easy to see that the Shia family's life was not comfortable at all. Before, the Shia family had depended on the Yang family to be able to earn their living at the Kiara Sea. Because of Yang family's strong power, the Shia family was also guilty with many of the other forces. As the Yang family had fallen into decay, the Shia family had been affected as well. They were being oppressed by the Heaven Lake Divineland, thus their powers had decreasingly declined. When the demon dwellers had invaded, the Shia family had soon avoided them and left the Kiara Sea. However, regardless of either the Hengluo Sea or the Blackwater Sea, all the forces there had conflicts with the Shia family. If the Shia family took the risk to enter any of these areas, they could have irritated their opponents. The Shia family didn't dare to take the risks given the current situation, thus they finally chose this Wind Cloud Island. However, warriors of Jiyu family, the Dongfang family, and the Heaven Lake Divineland still often went to the Wind Cloud Sea to derange, taunt, and provoked the Shia family. If it weren't because of their biggest concerns, which were now the demon dwellers, perhaps they actually would have attacked the Shia family. Shia Shenchuan was very writhed. He looked frustrated with a gloomy face and knitted eyebrows during this time, whined and sighed all day long. Master, the people of the Jiyu family and the Heaven Lake Divineland come again. Should we negotiate with them this time? You see, hiding here is not a solution. Many of our people have started to be impatient. A place like this, even pirates don't want to stay here. It is not suitable for cultivations at all. On a bare hill, Ju, the Sky Realm consecrator of the Shia family, bent his body, assuaging his master with a forced smile. On this 200-meter tall bare hill, there were no medicinal herbs which could be useful towards their cultivations, nor spirit beasts. The heaven and earth spirit aura was extremely diluted. It was not likely a suitable place for cultivation at all. There were 10 bare hills like this all around here where no useful resources could be exploited. There were only a few of low-level small beasts dwelling inside of some further forests around them. No cultivating resources could have been found even if they had killed all of those beasts. The Shia family's people were living in several of the mountain caves that were surrounded by these bare hills, together with some wild nomads. Having been one of the greatest forces of the Kiara Sea, but now, things had changed. The Shia family was now really destitute and extremely ashamed when they were now facing this situation. Before, when they had been in their glorious time, many people of the Shia family were familiar with a life of ease. Their lives, however, had tragically suddenly changed. They couldn't adapt to the miserable life on this island right now, thus many of them wanted to leave. The Jiyu family and the Heaven Lake Divineland had recently sent out their messages to the Shia family. They constantly came to seek a marriage alliance between Shia Xinyan of the Shia family and Jiyu Yu of the Jiyu family and Feng Hai of the Heaven Lake Divineland. If the Shia family agreed, the Jiyu family and the Heaven Lake Divineland would immediately cede some islands with dense heaven and earth spirit aura for the Shia family's people to reside in. The wish of the Jiyu family and the Heaven Lake Divineland had quickly circulated through the entire Wind Cloud Island. Many of the Shia family people, who couldn't stand the miserable life in the Wind Cloud Island anymore, went to beg Shia Shenchuan to agree with the other two forces in exchanging Shia Xinyan's whole life's happiness for their more comfortable living conditions. Those scumbags. Xia Shenchuan harumphed. He certainly had heard about this rumor, and also knew some abominated faces in his family. Don't let them bother you. Right now, the Kiara Sea situation is not clear yet. Either the Jiyu family or the Heaven Lake Divine Land will all aim at the forces in our hands. Seeking a marriage alliance is fake, taking the Xia family to be their human shields is real. Juyu nodded. We can also see through it. But many of our people can't. When they were at the Kiara Sea, they had gotten used to an easy life. Suddenly, they had to move to this wind cloud island. Of course, they are in shock with a totally brand new life. I am afraid that after a while, that they would possibly covertly leave here. If it is like that. Xia Shenchuan's countenance changed. Is this true? Juyu forced a smile and slowly nodded. Xia Shenchuan's face suddenly became somber. In his eyes appeared a murderous look. Put an eye on them. If they don't obey my orders, just kill one or two of them to threaten the rest, to remind them who is their master. Juyu's body was shaken. He said with a trembling voice, Headmaster, if we kill our own people, the situation might get even worse. I don't worry about it too much. Xia Shenchuan's face was very frigid while speaking. The Kiara Sea's situation is so complicated right now. Neither the Henglua Sea nor the Blackwater Sea is surely safe. Once the demon dwellers take action, these so-called formidable forces can even hardly protect themselves, let alone sparing some strength to take care of us. Therefore, if our family agrees to associate with them, we will become their sacrificed objects, the first ones who will fathom the demon dweller fangs. Juyu contemplated for a while, then slowly nodded. The Jiyu family, at the Thousand Swords Peak. Numerous swords were plunged everywhere on the mountain peak. Under the sunlight, those swords were sparkling and reflected brilliant colorful rainbows. Countless of swords which looked like a sea of swords, among of which somehow vaguely had spirits, some of them had even produced shrieking sounds. This Thousand Swords Peak was the divine land of the Jiyu family, which had been created by nature, thus possessed a miraculous sword-nurturing power. Many high-qualified swords were forged, then plunged into the Thousand Swords Peak, and aged as it endured the wind, the storm, or the dazzling sunlight. After many accumulating months and years, these swords seemed to have spirits. This was a miracle. No one knew how come the Thousand Swords Peak had this ability. After having had this Thousand Swords Peak, the Jiyu family immediately took advantage of these swords here in becoming one of the greatest forces of the Kiara Sea. The Thousand Swords Peak could be considered the Jiyu family's root. An elder man in a blue blouse was sitting straight on the tips of the sharp swords with an emaciated face. In the middle of the numerous dazzling sword lights, his countenance was calm as if he was attentively gathering the sword's auras to cultivate some kind of secret scripture. Sword spirits kept flashing on and off from his body mysteriously. Swoosh! A chubby warrior was riding a 3-chi-long silver sword, flying across the wind with a fast speed. The ear-piercing sound of the wind suddenly covered the entire Thousand Swords Peak. Dag. Gug's tiptoes poked on the silver sword. He was floating behind the elder man in the blue blouse and respectfully said with a low voice, Hua Meng was arrested when he was on the way to the Three Gods sect. Xiao Ling Lung has also been arrested. The eyebrows of the man in the blue blouse jerked, but his eyes still hadn't opened yet. He said indifferently, Ling Lung's gone to the chasm battlefield, how come is she there? Moreover, who dares to arrest Hua Meng? Have the demon dwellers taken action already? No, Hua Meng sent a message saying that it is a man of Yang family who has done so. Gug said. A man of the Yang family? The elderly man slightly shouted and eventually opened his eyes. His eyes were profound, completely placid like the water inside of a well. The Yang family still has someone in the Kiara Sea? Hua Meng is ranked at the second sky of the Sky Realm, so the person of Yang family who has arrested Hua Meng should have an outstanding reputation. Who is he? You've never met him. Gug shook his head and said. Hua Meng transmitted his message, saying that he is from the chasm battlefield. That person said that if you want to have your men back, you have to personally go there. He said that I have to go there myself. The elderly man harumphed. Is Yang Qing Emperor there? Yang Qing Emperor isn't there, But Hua Meng, there are certainly some God Realm warriors there. God Realm warriors? He said maybe not only one. Not only one? The eyes of the elder man suddenly shot out numerous sword auras. An endless consecutive explosive sound came out from the peak of the mountain which was opposite to the Thousand Swords Peak. Many lava rocks on that peak were crushed into ashes. The peak constantly shook as if it was about to collapse in no time. Gug bowed his head without daring to say anything further. I really have to go there. Jiyu Shao, the headmaster of the Jiyu family, contemplated a little bit before leaping up. Many of the god swords in the sea of swords surrounding them shrieked and then disappeared into his body. At the same time, Heaven Lake Divine Mother, the headmaster of the Heaven Lake Divine Land, had also received the same information. After being astounded for a while, she was also decisive in going straight to the Snow Dragon Island from the Heaven Lake Divine Land. Before going to the Snow Dragon Island, Jiyu Shao and the Heaven Lake Divine Mother had transmitted that information to the Three Gods Sect. Not long after that, the Three Gods Sect's forces everywhere were all been updated about the current situation on the Snow Dragon Island. The information of the abnormal incident on the Snow Dragon Island had been transmitted throughout the entire Kiara Sea. The Snow Dragon Island. Under the instructions of Di Shan, Yu Ru, Ya Meng and Yi Tian Mo, the people of the Demonic Sound Clan and the Wings race quickly captured the terrains around the Keel Clan's location. They started to set up shelters and partitions layer by layers, turning this area into a restricted area. In a short time, the flanks of the Snow Dragon Mountain had been dug out to make mountain caves. As the Demonic Sound Clan's people had the Icy Yin trait, they turned these caves into their cultivation shelters, constantly went in and out to cultivate devotedly. The Wings race's people had chopped down ancient trees to build wooden houses. With all those activities of the Demonic Sound Clan and the Wings race, the Snow Dragon Island had some major changes. What do you want to do after all? At a place beside an artificial lake of the Keel Clan, Jiyu Ling Lung stared at Shi Yang ferociously. The demon dwellers at the Kiara Sea seemed to have taken action. The great seas are facing a great danger. You should let us go, and unite with us to deal with the demon dwellers. Why do you still want to confine us? Unite with you? Shi Yang smiled frigidly. If it wasn't because of you, the demon dwellers wouldn't have pursued us to the chasm battlefield. You think just because of the demon dwellers' invasion, I would pretend as if nothing had ever happened? Uniting with you to deal with demon dwellers? It's ridiculous. So, what do you want? Jiyu Ling Lung felt very chilled inside of her heart and quietly sensed the insecurities. You will know soon. Shi Yang calmly said. Please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 279, Listening to the Earth's Movements. The Snow Dragon Island. Snow blanketed the entire mountain layer by layer. A gloomy world of snow looked like it had been draped by a silver sheet of cloth. Snowflakes were fluttering around everywhere. In the middle of the snow dune, Shi Yang was standing barefooted like a stone. His eyes were closed tightly as if he was listening to the earth's sounds. The bitter earth realm cultivation was tough indeed. Just refining the profound chi alone wasn't enough. After many arduous cultivating days, with the tattoo of the black-head lotus on his chest, he just needed to be focused. The speed of the refining profound chi was already much faster than that of an ordinary person. The purity level of the profound chi inside of his body had reached the breakthrough point. He could vaguely feel that he was just one small step away from entering the third sky state. After having asked for Yi Tian Mo's and Di Shan's opinions, he realized that in order to break through the earth realm, it was necessary for him to connect with the earth. The earth under his feet existed for hundreds of thousands of years. Deep inside of the ground contained a lot of wonders and miraculous sounds of movements, which was impossible for ordinary people to feel or discovered. However, if the earth realm warriors mediated and focused, when their mental states were immersed inside of the earth while they released their spirit powers, they congregated the God-purified aura on the ground underneath their feet and relaxed their comprehension. They could definitely sense the earth's sounds of movements. According to Di Shan and Yi Tian Mo, there were many kinds of marvelous vibrations inside of the earth. The vibrations of each phase of time and each season were totally different. If the warriors could sense those vibrations clearly as well as created a wonderful connection with them, their comprehension of the earth would enter a whole new world. In order to quickly break through the earth realm, except for training and practicing the profound chi, the soul, and the body, connecting with the earth was indispensable. At the time when the leaders of the Heaven Lake Divine Land and the Gu Gamely hadn't come yet, and Di Shan, Yi Tian Mo were still busy with reforming the Snow Dragon Island, Shi Yang was putting all of his efforts in breaking through the new realm. He wholeheartedly concentrated his mind, bitterly cultivated with the hope that he would soon break through the peak level of the earth realm and enter the Nirvana realm. Only when he entered the Nirvana realm did he have hopes of controlling the sky-breaking shuttle. This peculiar treasure from the abandoned land with its arrogant aura had communicated with him with a spiteful attitude, which had made Shi Yang quietly irritated, but he wasn't able to do anything. Under the freezing weather, Shi Yang had been standing there for 3 days and 2 nights already. On the 3rd night, the stars were ambiguous in the dark sky, as the moon was coldly bright and the wind which could chill oneself to the bone were howling like blustering demons. This scene brought along the icy yin aura which spread throughout the entire world. Shi Yang's countenance didn't have any changes. The snow was unceasingly falling, layer upon layer. With millions of snowflakes gently floating around him, before he knew it, he had become a snowman. His sea of consciousness was quiet. The 5 devils also seemed peaceful. Flows of his soul consciousness were being absorbed into the ground, penetrated thousands of zhong deep under the ground until they couldn't go any deeper. After having penetrated thousands of zhong deep under the ground which then spread out very where, his soul consciousness could feel a few of very feeble fluctuating vital living forms. At this depth, there unexpectedly still existed small living entities. This discovery had astonished Shi Yang significantly. With his bare feet on the ground, Shi Yang used both the comprehension of his soul consciousness and his mental powers to sense every single tiny bit of transformations under his feet. Regretfully, after having attentively induced mental comprehension for 3 days and 2 nights, he still hadn't got much. He hardly felt the marvelous sounds of the earth's movements, which Di Shan and Yi Tian Mo had mentioned. According to Di Shan and Yi Tian Mo, those sounds of movements were produced every passing second. He just needed to activate his mental comprehension and understand the essence of the Upanishads, he then could use his spirit to feel them. However, Shi Yang was not able to comprehend them right away. An endless chain of mountains surrounded him. A corner of the ice on the peak of the mountain sparked. The matriarch of the White Wings clan, Yu Ru, was standing shoulder to shoulder with Di Shan with a frigid face. From a distance, they both looked at Shi Yang who had been standing in the snowy weather for 3 days and 2 nights. The moonlight was like skating blades that shone inclinedly to the earth, which made the surrounding area of the mountain icily brighter. It's already been 3 days and will be 3 nights after tonight. Our master's fortitude is really exceptional. Yu Ru spread her small white hands, 2 snowballs in her hands were sparkling under the moonlight. A flow of freezingly icy aura from the snowballs slowly condensed, the 2 snowballs compacted and gradually became 2 transparent snowballs. That's beautiful. The abandoned land never had snow. Yu Ru gently raised her delicate hands, the transparent snowball in her hands gyrated in the air, projecting faint snow-white lights. It has taken me 3 years to be able to enter the 3rd sky from the 2nd sky of the earth realm. It was because it has taken like forever to be able to use the spirit to comprehend the sounds of the earth's movements. Di Shan clasped his hands behind his back, looking up to the sky as if he was also immersing in his old memories. It took me roughly about 2.5 years. Although the sounds of the earth's movements are always produced, it needs a restful mind as well as a highly comprehensive cultivation in order to feel the earth's rotation. Sometimes, one also needs a bit of luck to be able to feel it. Yu Ru smiled and nodded. That's right. Luck is something that cannot be touched, but it really exists. People with good luck will usually be 1 step ahead compared with the others. Fate is also one kind of God's will. If things follow the will of God, putting forth only half of one's effort could already receive much more achievements than the others. Talk about luck. We still didn't tell him that it would have been best to sense the sounds of the earth's movements at the place where there were constant seisms. The sound of the Earth's movements is clearest when there is a seism. If he can capture the frequency of the sounds of the Earth's movements, then adjust the frequency vibrations inside of his body to match with the sounds of the Earth's movements, he can thoroughly understand them. Also, he will be able to capture the essence of this realm. Di Shan looked at Shi Yang from a distance, and said coldly, sensing the sounds of the Earth's movements when there is a seism is still the unofficial way. I don't think its results are as good as when he uses his mind to comprehend it. I still believe that the perceptions through hardships are the most precious. That's right. I believe that he can do it. Perhaps he will be able to enter the peak of the Earth realm shortly afterward. Yu Ru said with a smile. Du Shan gently shook his head, disagreed with her, then said, it's not that easy. The reason his realm has been so quickly enhanced is thanks to our medicinal herbs as well as many of the peculiar treasures inside of his body. Of course, I know that his abilities are exceptional. However, he just entered the second sky of the Earth realm a few months ago. To be able to comprehend the sounds of the Earth's movements in such a short time is obviously impractical. Remember that you and I have needed almost 3 years to be able to do so. I still think that his innate abilities are much more than ours. The corner of Yu Ru's mouth beamed out a smile. Didn't you see that old Yi Tianmo's behavior towards Master has marvelously changed after they had stayed together for a while? At first, even though Yi Tianmo had vowed to make him his master, the gesture was not really wholehearted. He did it because of the 3 heaven flames on Master's body. He was afraid that his clan would have perished, that was why he had reluctantly agreed. However, right now, he's changed. I realized that Yi Tianmo's eyes now have a glimpse of respect when looking at Master. Di Shan contemplated for a long while, then nodded with a suspicious face. That's why I also feel weird about it. I don't know why Yi Tianmo has started to trust and respect him that much after only 5 days. Ha ha ha, this is called the enchanting power of the personality. There should be a lot of secrets about Master that we don't know about yet. Among the 3 leaders of the demonic sound clan, Yi Tianmo is the most cunning and clever one, but is already changed. So, Kaba and Ya Meng will also be truly devoted in no time. Yu Ru smiled deliberately and mumbled to herself. There are some people who were born to have this innate leading ability. Di Shan was astonished. The Wind Cloud Island. Inside of the Feral Bear Mountain, a beautiful charming figure suddenly flared up and instantly disappeared. That figure was like the sprite of the forests, that were bewitchingly beautiful, and as subtle as a light breeze. Boom! This figure stepped on the mountain rocks and then lightly flew towards the mountain cave not far from there. After she had flown 100 meters away, an explosion resounded from the mountain rocks which she had just stepped on. The realm is not steady yet. This way of using forces is not precise, Xia Xinyan thought to herself, then she suddenly accelerated and appeared inside of that mountain cave like a faint light zooming over just in a blink. The mountain cavern was not big and the chambers inside of it were sparse. These chambers had been indelicately and primitively built. The heaven and earth's aura was not dense inside of the cave, which was unsuitable for the warriors' cultivations. Around dozens of the warriors of the Xia family were residing inside of the mountain cave. Also, there were roughly 10 warriors from the Heaven Lake Divineland and the Jiyu family. Besides, an arena had just been set up there, inside of the cave. Among the warriors from the Heaven Lake Divineland and the Jiyu family, 2 young men with handsome and intelligent appearances were the most outstanding ones. Jiyu Yu of the Jiyu family had 3 pieces of the god sword of the Jiyu family with him. He was at the second sky of the earth realm. His face was bright and delicate like jade as his manners were bounteous. Feng Hai of the Heaven Lake Divineland was also ranked at the second sky of the earth realm. He possessed the black water martial spirit. His physical body was flexible and delicate, as his elegance and appealing appearance even surpassed the girls. While he was standing there, many young girls of the Xia family looked at him with brightened and seducing eyes. They both assessed him and whispered to each other at the same time. Jiyu Yu and Feng Hai were the 2 leaders of the new generations of the Jiyu family and the Heaven Lake Divineland after Jiyu Linglung and Chu Yangqing. These 2 young men had not only prominent appearances but also an outstanding cultivation base. They were the important figures whom the Jiyu family and the Heaven Lake Divine Land had sent over to seek marriage with Xia Xinyan. The real purpose of this marriage was to control the forces of the Xia family's hands through the marriage. The war with the demon dwellers was coming closer. If they could have the Xia family's forces before the battle, it would be the luckiest thing for the Jiyu family and the Heaven Lake Divine Land. Xia Xinyan, who was like the sprite of the woods, had agilely descended. She was so elegant and noble with her delicate and slender manners. She stood there without saying anything, but she was still like the bright moon in the sky, which drew all the men's eyes. Jiyu Yu and Feng Hai were arrogantly receiving many flattering compliments from some young men of the Xia family with ignorant gestures. However, after Xia Xinyan had descended, these two young men's eyes brightened up. Their bodies slightly swayed, which was hard to recognize. A gentle smile also appeared on their originally arrogant and frigid faces while they were gazing at Xia Xinyan. Xia Xinyan, let me introduce you. This young man is Jiyu Yu from the Jiyu family. This is Feng Hai from the Heaven Lake Divine Land. They are both exceptional youths of the Kiara Sea. Xia Ruishing's face was full of gaiety. He laughed out loud while introducing Jiyu Yu and Feng Hai to Xia Xinyan. Everything he said about these two men was all compliments. Xia Ruishing was the collateral branch of the Xia family. As his cultivation base was at the Nirvana realm, he had a high position in Xia family. He even sometimes despised the lineal persons of the Xia family. He was nominally Xia Xinyan's uncle. No need to say more. Xia Xinyan's eyebrows knitted tightly while interrupting his floods of words and coldly said, I know the purpose of their arrival. I am here. Any one of them can win over me. I will satisfy their wishes. If they lose, they have to get the hell out of here, and never ever bother me anymore. Everyone's expressions inside of the cave all slightly changed. Chapter 282, Determination. Chapter 282, Determination. Xinyan, don't be rude. Xia Ruishing slightly shouted with an unpleased face. He said with a low voice while knitting his eyebrows. Once you use the reincarnation martial spirit, you will instantly enter the sky realm. Not to mention Jiyu Yu or Feng Hai, even I myself, will surely not even be considered as your opponent. How could it be? Jiyu Yu and Feng Hai were also a little embarrassed and awkwardly smiled without replying. Both Jiyu Yu and Feng Hai knew about the miracle of the Xia family's reincarnation martial spirit. Once the reincarnation martial spirit was activated, Xia Xinyan's forces would not just simply increase several times its original size, but it could be enhanced one whole higher realm. Although Jiyu Yu and Feng Hai had a little bit confidence in their own strengths, they knew that they were not able to defeat this peculiar reincarnation martial spirit. Thus, they didn't dare to be a hero in accepting that challenge. Jiyu was standing at the side quite far away, frowning while looking at Jiyu Yu, Feng Hai, and the other warriors of the Jiyu family and the Heaven Lake Divine Land. Xia Shenchuan hadn't shown up yet. He had just reminded Jiyu to pay more attention to the situation here. If there weren't any major issues happened, he would not show up in order to avoid the conflict between the Jiyu family and the Heaven Lake Divine Land. Herm Yu Feng from the Heaven Lake Divine Land, who had the Nirvana realm cultivation base, also came this time. He couldn't help but speak up while coldly looking at Xia Xinyan. If you don't use the reincarnation martial spirit, your challenge can be thus considered. But if you win using the reincarnation martial spirit, there is nothing more to say. The spirit aura on this wind cloud island is very diluted. I don't want to stay here for too long. Jiyu Xingyang's face was unpleasant. Jiyu Yu and the Jiyu family's powers and conditions is number 1 or number 2 at the Hengluo Sea now. We've granted the privileges to you when we have degraded ourselves towards making a marriage alliance with you. Don't be too self-conceited. Jiyu's countenance suddenly changed. The faces of many of the people of the Xia family also slightly changed. They seemed to be bitterly looking at Jiyu Zhengyang indignantly. If the Yang family was still here, if we were still at the Kiara Sea, and if our ancestors hadn't fallen into this insane situation, would the Jiyu family still have dared to bully us like this? We would have made all of you suffer while crawling on the ground. Every one of the Xia family secretly clenched their teeth while remembering their glorious days at the Kiara Sea, those illustrious days with the Yang family when they had gone forth to conquer the other seas. Regretfully, things had now changed. Their former dignity had left them further and further away. As of now, the Yang family had been in decline. The Yang Tian Emperor had been missing for so long without any news that the people of the Yang family had wandered into many unknown places. The Kiara Sea, which had been invaded by demon dwellers, was not their common ground anymore. Meanwhile, the time when their great master was conscious was much less than when he was in his dementia. Thus, it was impossible for him to shoulder the responsibilities of the family. Harais. Ju Yu was among the people, shaking his head while releasing a long sigh. He looked at Xia Xinyan pitifully with a bitter face. Suddenly, Ju Yu was startled as if he had just realized something. His eyes brightened, staring at Xia Xinyan without even blinking. After quietly releasing his soul consciousness, Ju Yu slowly sensed everything around him for a while. His eyes got brighter, as his body slightly trembled. The Peak Earth Realm. You unexpectedly have reached the Peak Earth Realm. The Xia family had never seen the fact that the realm had such a big improvement in almost just 2 years. Ju Yu secretly nodded his head while looking at a mesmerizing figure that was calmly standing among his people. He thought that with that privileged trait, it was understandable why Ji Yu and Feng Hai were such an eyesore. Only those who were in the top of the combat list could catch the lady's eyes. But, the little rascal whom she was missing, was he worthy or not? Who said that I have wanted to use the reincarnation martial spirit? Xia Xinyan's voice was cold, her eyebrows furrowed. I don't need to use the reincarnation martial spirit. I will have a fair fight with you. If you two unite with each other and win over me, I will carefully consider your request. How does this sound? What? Fighting with the two of them alone? Could it not be true? The Xia family's people were clamorous, looking at her with astonishment, wondering how come she could have this kind of offer. Xia Ruishing got dazed for a while. He then suddenly burst into laughter, clapping his hands and said, "That's good. I agree with this offer. Feng Ji, Ji, what do you think?" Yu Feng and Ji Zhengyang laughed out loud with a despising look and slowly nodded. Don't disappoint our family. Ji Zhenghai slightly shouted. You fight with her first. Unity is just a joke for the other people. The Ji family doesn't need to unite with any others. I believe in you. Ji Yu revealed a delicate smile. He walked to Xia Xinyan with a gentle move. He said with a low voice while his eyes were full of hope, "Miss Xia, where do you think is most suitable for the fight?" "The Bear Mountain over there." Xia Xinyan's finger pointed at the low bare hill next to them. She swept her neglected eyes towards Ji Yu then to Feng Hai, and said, "You two better unite with each other. Otherwise, you will be defeated miserably. Then don't blame me for not reminding you." After saying so, she slightly moved, leaped up and flew out more than 100 meters away just in a blink. "Feng Ji, I'd like to go first." Ji Yu clasped his hands towards Feng Hai with a faint smile. Then, he immediately turned into a fading shadow flying towards Xia Xinyan's direction. The eyes of Ju Yu, Xia Ruishing, Feng Hai, and Ji Zhengyang all flared up, looking towards the Bear Mountain. A vibration which was like an earthquake came out from the Bear Mountain all of a sudden. Lava rocks from that mountain constantly erupted into rubble, scattering everywhere in the sky. Rubble was densely dispersing. Ju Yu and the other people from more than 1,000 meters away could only feel a collision power from that hill, but they couldn't see what was happening there. An ear-splitting explosive sound constantly reverberated from the Bear Mountain. After 1 minute, the sound had stopped. Swoosh! Ji Yu was thrown out from that thick mist of rubble with torn clothes and a dirty face. The armor on his body, which looked like silver fins, had been riddled with holes. From those holes, it could be vaguely seen of many open wounds, which were deep to the bones. Boom! Ji Yu feebly fell down to a meadow of weeds at the foot of the Bear Mountain. His appearance was extremely miserable, as his face was ashen with confused eyes. Ji Zhengyang was livid with rage, shouting, "You said that you wouldn't use the reincarnation martial spirit. That girl really wants to die. Since you are unreasonable like this, don't blame us for not going easy on you. Jiyu Zhangyang shouted angrily as if he wanted to storm over inside of the Bear Mountain to kill Xia Xinyan. Jiyu harumphed coldly. His figure suddenly appeared in front of Jiyu Zhangyang. He knitted his eyebrows and said, I've been staying with the Xia family for many years, so I know very well the sign when the reincarnation martial spirit has been used as the back of my hand. Although I have carefully watched for a long while, Our Lady actually has not used the reincarnation martial spirit. Didn't use the reincarnation martial spirit? Jiyu cannot be that bad. Jiyu Zhangyang obviously didn't believe it. He revealed a frigid smile and said, she's used some way to hide it from you and then secretly used the reincarnation martial spirit. I don't believe you. Don't. Right at this time, Jiyu shouted weakly, cocked his head and dolefully said, She hasn't used the reincarnation martial spirit indeed. What? Jiyu Zhangyang was startled. Feng Hai. The rubble in the sky gradually disappeared. Xia Xinyan's heart-stirring figure reappeared. She was standing on the Bear Mountain, looking towards Feng Hai from the distance, then coldly said, Your turn. Feng Hai's face had slightly changed. He suddenly laughed out loud and then leaped up and flew towards the Bear Mountain. Boom boom boom. Another earth-shaking explosive sound echoed. From numerous rubble scattering all over the sky, Feng Hai's skinny body bounced right off even faster than Jiyu's. Feng Hai fell down next to Jiyu, wiped the trickle of blood away from the corner of his mouth while shaking his head with miserable eyes. Miss Xia, you are really dangerous. I think the top 5 of the combat list are not your match even if they were here. Based on what Miss Xia has performed today, you can easily be on the top 3 of the combat list. I, Feng Hai, know that I could not possibly defeat Miss Xia. I will no longer have this kind of thought. I will never come to disturb you again. After speaking, Feng Hai walked away lonely, ignoring Yu Feng's question. Jiyu Zhangyang constantly changed, angrily looking at the calm and delicate figure atop of the Bear Mountain. He then nodded firmly after a while, grabbed Jiyu and shouted, Let's go. Her real realm has reached the peak Earth realm. With what she has displayed, she is qualified enough to enter the top 3 of the combat list. Feng Hai's body suddenly stopped, then talked to Yu Feng who was standing behind him. I have condensed 7 drops of the black water, each of which was destroyed by her. Luckily, I had retreated in time, otherwise, I am afraid that I would have ended up with serious injuries like Jiyu. She was unexpectedly so powerful without even using the reincarnation martial spirit. We have underestimated the Xia family's potential. Yu Feng's face was in total shock. She has reached the peak Earth realm? Jiyu's face was pale white as his eyes showed fear. I am afraid that I am not her match. Xia family wants to take the constraints and punishments instead of favorable proposals. You don't think too much. No matter how exceptional the ability of that girl is, the Xia family doesn't have God Realm warriors. They had been tremendously declined at the Kiara Sea. Especially that the Xia family used to be united with the Yang family, and always oppressed our Jiyu family. Right now, as the Yang family is screwed, we obviously won't let go of the Xia family that easily. Jiyu Zhangyang's face was serious, frigid light flared up in his eyes. The Xia family's suffering time is not far ahead. The Snow Dragon Island, in the middle of the avalanche. It was unknown since when Shi Yang had been wearing only blue shorts, more than half of his big bare body was exposed. He was intimidatingly standing under the dense falling snow. Suddenly, Shi Yang, who now looked like a dominating statue, slightly shivered with a very tiny amplitude of movement. Along with those slight shivers, sparkling lights slowly moved under his skin, which was like small streams of water that gradually gathered at the profound cheese halo on his belly. A peculiar sound of movements came out from the underground as if it quietly absorbed into his body through his feet. The amplitude of his body's shivers got bigger and bigger. Glorious dazzling lights spread out from his body in a short time, along with his shivers after a while. 7 days, faster than I could have ever imagined. From the snow mountain in the distance, Yu Ru was a little astonished. She revealed a smile while mumbling to herself. A few paces away from her, Di Shan was in shock with an agitated face and brightened eyes. Chapter 283, The Peak Earth Realm. Chapter 283, The Peak Earth Realm. Ice and snow were growling and the wind was chilled to the bones. Next to the very thick blocks of the iceberg, half of Shi Yang's naked body was slightly shivering. After standing amid the snow and ice for 7 days and nights barefooted on the hard icy surface, as well as holding his breath and comprehending, Shi Yang had harvested a lot of achievements. For fluctuations, which were numerous times less than the flaps of butterflies' wings, deep underground, ordinary people could possibly never ever realize or feel them for their whole life. However, as Shi Yang had been bitterly cultivating for so many years, he had gained spirit aura which far surpassed that of ordinary people. Thus, after a long perseverant time of having used his spiritual sense to perceive, he had finally sensed the heart of the earth. Even though it was minuscule and hard to distinguish, he had successfully sensed it after a long time of concentration in silence. When that extremely tiny movement was transmitted to his sea of consciousness from his bare feet, Shi Yang suddenly processed a miraculous comprehension, which was like a relief from suffering. Even the host soul inside the sea of consciousness was also purified and sublimated. The host soul followed that sound and rippled very subtle moves from the inside of the sea of consciousness. Flows of spirit instinctively immersed in the halo of the profound chi on his belly. So did the soul consciousness. After the fluctuation of the sea of consciousness had appeared, matching with the sound of movements under the earth, the halo, which was originally very dazzling, gradually became clearer and more delicate. While the soul consciousness penetrated the halo, Shi Yang's mind-eye absorbed all the profound chi's halo. He began to see every single of tiny transformations inside it. A world of sparkling lights. This world was floodlit with numerous peculiar shining crystal-like lights. Those countless lights were branched like a giant jade-like transparent tree covering the entire sky verdantly, which secretly contained pure and tremendous profound chi. By using his third eyes, Shi Yang could see everything as clear as in his hand. The world of the profound chi's halo gradually appeared inside his heart and then was transmitted into his sea of consciousness. Shi Yang had never thought that the interior of the profound chi's halo was wonderful like this. He had used the profound chi every time he fought, but he never knew the place where his profound chi gathering was this radiant and marvelous. Until his mind and heart had immersed in it completely, he now had a sensational feeling from the bottom of his heart due to this miraculous and stupendous spectacle. Numerous fulgent branches bound together to form a giant transparent ancient tree trunk. Purified profound chi, which was contained inside each of those branches, radiated brilliant marvelous lights. However, the transparent ancient tree trunk didn't have any leaves nor fruits. Even the roots were extremely small. This seemed to be just the beginning of the tree with the primitive shape, as it had not reached the best stage yet. Roar, roar, roar. There appeared very small movements in his sea of consciousness. These movements were like the minuscule movements of the earth. In return to the movements of this radiant ancient tree trunk, its branches also waved rustlingly. Shi Yang could vaguely hear some sound. Following the movements of this ancient tree trunk, each branch luminesced glitteringly. Dense profound chi turned into many beams of lights flying freely in this radiant world. He urged the profound chi subconsciously. While his spirit was still immersing in the profound chi, many flows of lights were flying freely inside the transparent ancient tree trunk suddenly started to shot out of to the edge of the tree. Right after that, Shi Yang instantly realized that the purified profound chi was massively spreading out from the halo of the profound chi. The ancient tree trunk luminesced brilliantly. Each transparent branch was slightly swung, releasing numerous lights out of that ancient tree trunk, which ruined the marvelous and miraculous halo of profound chi. They then turned into the original profound chi, which was the forces he had used in combats. Everything had turned to be clear. After having comprehended for only a short while, Shi Yang already knew the scene deep inside the halo of the profound chi, the place where profound chi had been hidden, as well as the containing form, the orbit and the way to urge them. As being able to comprehend easily, when he wasn't well prepared yet, he felt his body shaking violently and the sound frequency of the movements being transmitted from under the earth. Movements inside of his sea of consciousness had matched with the movements of the transparent ancient tree trunk. The host soul was submerged in the essence. He had entered the third sky of the earth realm as easy as flipping his hand over. He now could easily feel the sound of the earth's movements with his bare feet on the ground. Stretching his arms and opening his hands, Shi Yang urged the profound qi and then condensed them into the life seal. 7 sparkling seal blocks were suddenly formed with the speed that was twice faster than normal. With a violent impetus that seemingly wanted to break mountains, the life seals shrieked and shot out, engraving on the snow mountain. Boom, boom, boom. The ear-splitting explosion immediately came up from the mountaintop. Sharp icicles, which looked like sabers, were smashed into pieces. Chopping board-size icebergs splattered everywhere under the cold moon and then rolled down massively to the foot of the mountain. Shi Yang in the soul blue shorts was bowing his head in silence, thinking of something in the chilling moonlight atop a freezing and empty mountain. Yu Ru and Di Shan were standing almost 1,000 meters away, looking towards his general direction with serious faces. They didn't speak, as they were afraid it would disturb him. Long after that, when the moon had gradually moved and almost disappeared, Shi Yang put on his blue clothes, and then deliberately walked towards the snow mountain which had been struck down. One of his hands placed on the tip of the sharp icicle and quietly sensed it. What? Yu Ru slightly shouted and casually threw the sparkling snowball, which she had just created, away. Master seems to discover something. Should we go there and check? Di Shan nodded and slowly spread out his anomalous 5 or 6 meter long black ink wings. They were slightly swinging. Di Shan looked like a demon from hell with frigid aura, his pupils looked cold-hearted and aggressive. Yu Ru's mouth revealed a faint smile from a corner. Her snow-white wings hadn't opened yet. After slightly swaying her mesmerizing body, she gradually vanished from the snow mountain top. When she reappeared, she had been already at Shi Yang's side, bowing her head, walking close to Shi Yang and gently asked, "Master, what did you find out?" Di Shan was a little further away from Shi Yang, strangely looking at Shi Yang's hand placing on the tip of the icicle. Shi Yang was contemplating with his closed eyes, seemed to think of something. He didn't raise his head and still kept his current posture. Shi Yang, with his eyes closed tight, sent the spirit aura of the ice-cold flame inside the blood vein ring into the tip of the icicle. This spirit aura then groped along the icicle and went into the deepest place inside the snow dragon mountain. The ice-cold flame was the heaven flame with the icy trait in heaven and earth. However, in this miraculous world, creatures with the icy trait were not only the ice-cold flame alone. Besides humankind and pagans, this mysterious unpredictable world also had strange powerful creatures which were similar to the heaven flames. Beasts were one of those creatures, but they were also the most ordinary ones. It was not that I found out something. After a while, Shi Yang knitted his eyebrows while raising his head, glanced at Yu Ru and Di Shan who were very curious, then explained, "It is the heaven flame with the icy trait inside my body. When I've sent my soul consciousness into the Snow Dragon Mountain, through its delicate icy spirit aura, my soul consciousness can feel another icy creature which is similar to it." Di Shan's and Yu Ru's countenance was in shock. Patriarch Di Shan, call Yi Tian Mo, Ya Meng, and Kaba to come here. The demonic sound clan's knowledge of souls is much better than your wings races. I will instruct them. Hopefully they can find out something. After contemplating for a while, Shi Yang said seriously, "We can stay on the Snow Dragon Island for a while. During this time, we have to thoroughly understand the entire Snow Dragon Island like the back of our hands. There shouldn't arise any unpredictable things out of our expectation. You can address me by my name." Di Shan slightly bent down, respectfully moved backward. "You don't need to be so formal with him." Yu Ru smiled, straightened herself up, taking a few steps back and then said, "I know Di Shan, once he's decided something, he would never regret it. Even if that decision is wrong, he will still carry it out till the end." She paused then continued speaking. "Therefore, as he's already vowed to make you his master, he wouldn't change it. No matter how much disappointing your future might be, if you are not dead, he will never break his vow. He pledges to take it as a bad luck but will never break his words. You don't need to be worried about him." Shi Yang's pupils sparked a strange light. He immediately knitted his eyebrows. "I still should keep the respect for them. Although you guys have made me your master and called me master, Di Shan, and Yi Tianmo are still my predecessors. This doesn't change now, and will not change in the future either. Even if I surpass them one day, this will still remain unchanged. Yu Ru's beautiful eyes brightened. She was a little bit touched, slowly nodded and said with a low voice, "My choice is not wrong. Being able to follow you might be a lucky thing for all of us." Shi Yang shook his head, then said with a smile, "I am your disturbance for now, completely not a lucky charm or something like that. However, I will try my best and hope the future would not make you regret the decision you've made today." After saying, Shi Yang retracted the hand placing on the tip of the icicle, closed his eyes and sent the message to the ice-cold flame, "How is it going? Under the mountain, there is a kind of spirit aura which is very similar to me. But, it is hiding very deep inside. If that creature really exists, it is probably in a very deep sleep. The entire spirit aura on its body has been hidden, which is very hard to be found out. If I can't get out of this damn ring, I myself will not be able to identify exactly its location." The ice-cold flame's reply made Shi Yang knit his eyebrows tightly. He said with a shocking face, "If you said so, there are peculiar things inside of the Snow Dragon Mountain for real." "Maybe." The ice-cold flame hesitated for a while and then continued, "There is another possibility. Maybe that creature has left already, and the spirit aura I am feeling is just some remnants." Swoosh swoosh swoosh. The chilly wind was torn apart as some figures quietly appeared one by one. Di Shan and other 3 leaders of the demonic sound clan all gathered in front of Shi Yang. After shooting a quick glance, Yi Tianmo bent his body, respectfully said with a shocked face, "Congratulations master, you have taken one more step into the peak earth realm. Based on your strength and innate ability, hopefully, you will reach the nirvana in 2 or 3 years." Kaba and Ya Meng were a little surprised, staring at Shi Yang for a while before congratulating him. Shi Yang calmly waved his hand to prevent them from flattering. He pointed at the shining tip of the icicle and quickly went straight to the point, "This Snow Dragon Island has a peculiar thing. According to the heaven flame inside my body, there exists a creature with the icy trait on this island. The ability to sense the souls of the 3 of you is extremely powerful. So, use your ability to search carefully if there is this peculiar thing for real." "Yes." Yi Tianmo's group of 3 and other 2 bent their bodies and then immediately sat down cross-legged, closed their eyes and started sensing. Chapter 284, Visitors. Chapter 284, Visitors. Yi Tianmo's group of 3 and the other 2 were sitting on the ground with serious faces. Although there weren't any flows of profound qi moving on their bodies, the snow where they were sitting cross-legged started to melt. Their fluctuating souls penetrated into the earth, spreading widely deep inside the Snow Dragon Mountain. The body of the demonic Sound Clan's people was different from that of humankind, as it possessed the yin attribute. Their body structure was built to be able to bring out the most of their soul forces. 3 of them were the 3 leaders of the demonic Sound Clan. Their knowledge of the host soul and the sea of consciousness was far surpassed that of Shi Yang, Di Shan, and Yu Ru. Even the high-class God Realm warriors of the Kiara Sea would be persuaded in terms of the knowledge of the host soul when facing these 3 leaders. If having the soul fighting directly with them, the possibility of the Kiara Sea's warriors getting defeated was 80 or 90%. The feeble fluctuating souls, which even Shi Yang, Di Shan, and Yu Ru couldn't recognize, were moving slowly around the Snow Dragon Mountain, then gradually went deep inside the mountain, penetrating the foot of the mountain to sense the icy living movements of special creatures existing there. On the Snow Dragon Mountain, there obviously existed some creatures, some 4th level, 5th level beasts, or insects hiding deeply underground. As long as these creatures were still alive, they all emitted living fluctuations. When Yi Tianmo's group of 3 projected soul fluctuations, they realized numerous responses from lives immediately. At this moment, their spiritual souls were moving all around the Snow Dragon Mountain, so they could sense all the creatures' lives. Among those countless living fluctuations, finding one with the icy attribute, which was hiding deeply inside as well as extremely powerful, was not an easy job. With his soul consciousness being wide opened and his mind being calmed, Shi Yang could feel a minuscule fluctuation. This fluctuation came from deep inside of the earth, which was like a special beating heart of the Grace mainland. However, as this fluctuation was in a very far distance, when it was transmitted to his feet, it was already very weak and hard to feel. But he still could sense it. Therefore, the miraculous fact that Shi Yang's host soul was on the same melody with the sound of the earth's movements had stirred up his sea of consciousness. Also, the halo of the profound qi inside his body had magical transformations accordingly. Everything led to the breakthrough to the third sky of the earth realm, very close to the nirvana realm. Although Shi Yang had been observing for a long time and hadn't got anything yet, still, he wasn't despondent. He refined and condensed the heaven and earth aura by himself and poured the aura into the black-head lotus tattoo on his chest with the speed that was several times faster than that of the other warriors at the same level. After the spiritual aura had been gathered and refined into profound qi, it slowly ran into the halo of profound qi on his belly. Without wasting any of the vitality, he made use of a little amount of free time to cultivate. Every time the realm was upgraded to another level, the demand for the profound qi became extremely avid. At this time, cultivating bitterly and patiently would be good for the quick increase of profound qi. While the dense heaven and earth aura poured into his chest, Shi Yang quietly sensed the transformation of the black-head lotus tattoo. He then calmly and carefully circulated the heaven and earth aura inside the tattoo. Oh! A miraculous fresh feeling suddenly appeared at the tattoo on his chest. Dense heaven and earth aura around the Snow Dragon Mountain gathered at the tattoo on his chest, then transformed slowly. Fresh aura, which was like the icy aura, started flowing out and getting into his body. After having felt this aura carefully, he could see many beams of cold aura moving inside his vessels, slowly converging into the halo of the profound qi on his belly. That fresh aura was not as strong as that of the ice-cold flame but still very freezing. When it moved inside his vessels, Shi Yang vaguely felt the moving forces inside his nerves became sluggish. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Strange vibration suddenly came out from Shi Yang's body. The fresh aura hiding inside his vessels began twisting to each other and then condensing. Twitter, twitter, twitter. The fresh aura was absorbed into his body quickly, condensed at one place as if it just turned to be a small icy loach creeping through every corner of his body and searching for something. That spirit creature rapidly glided, ran back and forth inside his vessels. Shi Yang's soul consciousness followed it closely. It dashed non-stop, wandering around inside his body, and then slowly advanced towards the finger, which was wearing the blood vein ring. What? Shi Yang got startled. As soon as he vaguely figured out something, he instantly sent out the message to the ice-cold flame. There is an aura, which is similar to yours, dashing toward that direction. Can you try to sense it? A chilled-to-bone aura spread out from the blood vein ring. His finger quickly turned into a sparkling ice crystal just in a blink of an eye. Many flows of small black ice flashed up on his finger one by one and then suddenly rolled towards the freezing little rascal that looked like a loach and covered that little rascal immediately even before he could have any reactions. Chomp! The little rascal, which had been condensed by the fresh aura, turned into a tiny white fiber and flew out of his finger all in a sudden. It then penetrated deeply into the earth just in a blink. The icy aura underground is moving to the inside of the earth. Follow it. Shi Yang shouted while his body was slightly shaken. Yi Tianmo, Kaba, and Ya Meng, who were sitting cross-legged, suddenly opened their eyes wider, looking to the direction which Shi Yang's finger was pointing at, nodded their heads and put all of their powers to pursue that icy aura. It is running away from me. The ice-cold flame inside the blood vein ring slightly swung, turning to a chilled-to-bone white flame. I can feel its aura and it also can sense that I am probing it at the same time. It is very cunning, didn't try to find me right away. Instead, it separated its aura into many parts, then made use of the time when you were condensing heaven and earth aura to penetrate your body quietly and converged inside of your body afterward. Its ability to use the power is not less than mine at all. Icy aura, slithery like a loach. Shi Yang mumbled to himself. Suddenly, his eyes brightened up. He quietly thought, is it possibly an icy crystal bone dragon? In legends, the Snow Dragon Island used to be a lair of an icy crystal bone dragon. Did you find out any beast's aura? Icy crystal bone dragon, The ice-cold flame mused for a while as though it didn't agree with Shi Yang's opinion. It doesn't look like one. The icy crystal bone dragon is a low intellectual creature. Even if it reaches the 8th level, its ability to use its own forces is not as good as that little rascal's. Perhaps it isn't the icy crystal bone dragon. Shi Yang would not be persistent to oppose the ice-cold flame's opinion because, obviously, his understanding of beasts isn't as thorough as that of the ice-cold flame. He got the knowledge related to the icy crystal bone dragon through the legend being told by Linda. Thus, he couldn't know about it as well as the ice-cold flame. I still feel that that guy doesn't look like a beast. Because beasts are very big, if there is a beast inside this mountain for real, it is easy to be discovered. The ice-cold flame contemplated for a while and continued, "You should be careful. If that guy can use the ice-cold aura that skillful, its forces should be definitely extremely powerful. If it rebels, it's not easy to deal with." Shi Yang nodded quietly. When Shi Yang and the ice-cold flame were communicating, Yi Tianmo's group of 3 was still searching for the peculiar icy force, which had gone into the earth. High-class God Realm warriors, Shi Yang mumbled to himself and faintly smiled. "We have some visitors then. Save this for later. Let's go and see who those visitors are." Ya Meng and Kaba also retrieved their soul forces after having heard Shi Yang's words. Their faces looked confused and dispirited. "It's really weird. The souls of 3 of us still couldn't identify its exact location. This kind of creature is very good at hiding, definitely isn't the low intellectual beast." Kaba contemplated a little bit and then said, "Luckily, we are still on this island. I can use one secret scripture next time, perhaps we can get something then." After having heard this, Ya Meng and Yi Tianmo seemed to come up with something, their eyes suddenly brightened. Shi Yang also noticed Kaba's confidence, but he didn't dig into this topic anymore. He said with a smile, "Let's go to see our visitors." An elder man in a blue blouse and an indulgent elder woman were walking shoulder by shoulder in the void of the Snow Dragon Island. There seemed stairs under their feet leading down to the ground. "This is the first time I've come to this Snow Dragon Island. There seems many shelters have been arranged. Most of these shelters are to limit the exploration of the soul. It's quite exceptional indeed." The elder man in the blue blouse nodded slowly, then talked to the elder woman. "You tell me, the remnants of Yang family really come from the chasm battlefield this time? Both of the 2 demon kings have confirmed that Yang Tian Emperor is confined in the 4th demon area." The elderly woman's face turned serious. "I've never heard that the 4th demon area and the chasm battlefield are linked together. Moreover, even if they connect to each other, Yang Tian Emperor can't get out anyway. We don't know who the high-class God Realm warriors on this island are after all. In this unsettled situation, Yang family has come to make a mess. It is really a headache." The elderly man in the blue blouse forced a smile, shaking his head. A small beam of sword light flared up in his eyes. He talked to the elderly woman, "If this gives us more troubles, we should unite with each other to preclude this potential danger before the demon dwellers come. What do you think?" The elderly woman said with a serious face. "Besides you and me, the guy from the 3 gods sect might also come here shortly. I've heard there isn't only one God Realm warrior here. If it is true, we should be careful. I just don't believe that there are God Realm warriors for real. Perhaps it was only our people's illusion that made them mistake the fake God Realm warriors and the true ones." "I think so." The elder man in the blue blouse smiled and said. Chapter 285, Confrontation. Chapter 285, Confrontation. The Snow Dragon Island wasn't too hot even during the afternoon. Especially in the adjacent area of the Snow Dragon Mountain, cool breezes blowing from the mountain made the people living at the foot of the mountain feel very fresh and comfortable. Inside of a 4-story wooden house, the 2 Sky Realm warriors, Hua Meng and Huang Nan from the Jiyu family and the Heaven Lake Divine Land, were sitting opposite to the other 2 young warriors Jiyu Linglong and Chu Yang Qing. Cao Ji Lan, He Qing Man, and Panja were sitting at another place, eating fruits with complicated faces. After Hua Meng and Huang Nan had delivered the message as Shi Yang had requested, They were still very curious about what had happened to Jiyu Linglong and Chu Yangqing. They kept asking and finally got some information about the ambiguous origins of the demonic Sound clan and the Wings race. They felt frightened inside of their hearts. The Kiara Sea was suffering the menace from the demon dwellers. Now the demonic Sound clan and the Wings race suddenly came here from the chasm battlefield. Moreover, these two tribes also had high-class warriors, which astonished Hua Meng and Huang Nan very much. They didn't know what the demonic Sound clan and the Wings race had wanted after all. Our headman will come here shortly. Until then, hopefully, nothing would happen. Hua Meng looked at Jiyu Linglong with a confused face and said, "Our headman has been always arrogant. Meanwhile, the competence of the demonic Sound clan and the Wings race is still unclear. If he gets angry, perhaps he will fight with these two tribes. If it is to be so, the situation will be hard to settle." Jiyu Linglong obviously understood Jiyu Shao's personality. She nodded and said, "I hope our headman can sense the abnormalities on the island." Chu Yangqing's picturesque eyebrows knitted while she quietly released a sigh, as she also worried for the Divine Mother Yu Qin, who didn't know of the situation on the island yet. Pan Zhe and Cao Zilan were sitting near there. After having survived through many soul experiments which had been carried out by Shi Yang, Pan Zhe's spirit was extremely down. He had lost his former manners from before. As of now, every time that he saw Shi Yang, he instantly felt cold-hearted within his trembling soul. When they were at the abandoned land, Shi Yang had considered him his most regular experimental test subject, who had suffered the most from all of his dangerous soul experiments. Those days were Pan Zhe's most dismal nightmares in his life, of which he didn't dare to think of again. Every time he thought about Shi Yang, he couldn't help but clenched his teeth angrily. Nonetheless, he still really had a big fear of Shi Yang. "When you return home, what is your plan?" Cao Zilan was the calmest one. Her charming face didn't have any glimpses of anger. She was not hasty, concerned, nor displayed any redundant feelings. "Pan Zhe, I'd like to give you an advice." "What?" Pan Zhe's haggard eyes slightly flared up a lively light. He forced a miserable smile, looking at the beautiful girl next to him. "What advice?" "Don't think about taking revenge on Shi Yang. You are not able to deal with him." Cao Zilan hesitated a little bit before speaking with a low voice. Pan Zhe's lips slightly shivered, subconsciously looking out of the window. He shook his head and said, "Did that bastard do something to my body? You could realize it, that is so, right?" Cao Zilan's beautiful eyes contained distraught commiseration. She gently nodded her head and said, "I think he has placed some typical formation technique inside of our souls. Even if that formation technique was precluded, it still leaves the obsession deep inside your spirit. If you confront him in the future, I don't think you have any chances of winning." Pan Zhe could only reveal a forced smile as he knew that her words were all true. He bowed his head dolefully, released a sigh and mumbled to himself, "He is a monster. It is harder to deal with him than with the young people. I hope I won't see him again in the future, considering that I am scared of him." Cao Zilan was surprised, gazing at him for a while. She now realized that Shi Yang had used psychical means to destroy the leader-to-be of the Penglai Divine Land. She couldn't help but have a wonderful feeling. The elderly man in the blue blouse and Divine Mother Yu Qin of the Heaven Lake Divine Land were walking in the void, slowly stepping down from the sky, and appeared in front of the wooden house where Hua Meng and Huang Nam were staying. Jiyu Shao, with white hair on his two temples and a blue headscarf on his head, looked like an elegant scholar. As soon as they had descended onto the ground, he immediately shouted, "Where is the owner of this place?" Yu Qin had a charming manner. As the laps of her clothes fluttered, her whole body exposed a wholly graceful aura. Her bottomless eyes also displayed an outstanding wisdom. After the two of them had descended, they quietly released their soul consciousness that covered the entire Snow Dragon Island. However, after their soul consciousness had at once spread out over the entire island, they didn't discover any auras of the God Realm warriors nor even the auras of the Sky Realm warriors. This had surprised Jiyu Shao and Yu Qin very much. They became to be more cautious. Before coming here, they had received information from Hua Meng and Huang Nan stating that there were God Realm warriors on this island and that they were not only ones. Because of this message, the two of them, who could have stirred up the entire ocean with only one stomp, humbled themselves to come here. Although they didn't really believe that there were God Realm warriors on this island, they did believe that this place should have Sky Realm warriors who were only one step away from the God Realm. However, since they had arrived on this island, not only didn't they get anything but also didn't sense any powerful living fluctuations. These facts startled them a lot. As Hua Meng and Huang Nan, who were inside the 4-story wooden house, heard the shouts of Jiyu Shao and Yu Qin. Yet they couldn't help but speak up to reply them. However, they realized that the sounds of their voices couldn't go through the marvelous silver halo of this wooden house. Outside of the house existed some kind of soul defensive formation, which could prevent souls from investigating and discovering what was inside of the house. Thus, other people couldn't sense their auras even though they were near in a very short distance. Don't try any further. When Hua Meng and Huang Nan were trying to shout, Cao Zhilan suddenly stood up, quietly walked to the window, and looked out towards Jiyu Shao and Yu Qi. Her beautiful face displayed a shocked and frightened look. Jiyu Shao, the headman of the Jiyu family, and Yu Qin, Divine Mother of the Heaven Lake Divine Land, who both have a tremendous cultivation base of the first sky of the spirit realm, still couldn't locate our existence. This is... Cao Zhilan stopped speaking, but all of the other people's faces in the house had changed dramatically. As their hearts frantically beat, their eyes couldn't help but display fear. Impossible, absolutely impossible. Jiyu Ling Lung mumbled to herself and didn't believe that it was true. Great-grandfather has the spirit realm cultivation base. How come he can't find out that we are in here, at such a short distance from him? He is definitely doing it on purpose. Right, definitely on purpose. Nothing is impossible. Cao Zhilan took a deep breath. I have always been watching the demonic sound clan. I've realized that this peculiar race has a miraculous soul perception which far surpasses ours. You will not deny in doing this because all of us have already undergone this as well. Ya Meng's body and the profound qi are not as strong as ours, but he could use his special soul technique to control us as easily as in turning his hand over. This point alone can show how dangerous their spiritual Upanishads are. Panja slowly nodded and discouragingly said, Lady Cao is right. This race is much better than us in terms of soul potentials. The 3 leaders of the demonic sound clan all have the God realm cultivation base. At the same realm with Jiyu Shao and Divine Mother, their perception of souls and the sea of consciousness is much more profound than that of the other 2. This is the truth, we have to believe it. If it is not true, how come Jiyu Shao and Divine Mother was not able to discover the defensive formation that the 3 leaders of the demonic sound clan had arranged? Jiyu Ling Lung and Chu Yangqing started to be really worried. A big and imposing figure quickly glided over from the distant snow mountain and appeared in front of Jiyu Shao and Yu Qin shortly. I am Shi Yang from the Yang family at the Kiara Sea. I would like to greet you 2 predecessors. Shi Yang clasped his hands together with a respectful manner. He said with a smile, the 2 of you come here from thousands of miles far away, which has made me very joyful. Shi Yang. Jiyu Shao's eyes were like cold sharp swords looking at him and then said with an arrogant manner, I've never met you before. Let the elder of the Yang family come out to talk to me. You are not qualified enough to address me. With a quick glance, Jiyu Shao could instantly realize that Shi Yang's cultivation base was only at the 3rd sky of the Earth realm. Obviously, he was not worthy enough for Jiyu Shao to lay his eyes on or even say anything further. Let my people go first. Yu Qin's voice was cold although her face still remained lenient. I want to see the people of the Heaven Lake Divine Land first, then we can discuss with the Yang people. The Yang Tian Emperor has been confined, we don't know who else is worthy enough for us to meet. Shi Yang knitted his eyebrows, his smiling face gradually got frigid. You 2 seem to look down on me. Jiyu Shao shook his head and said, it is not that we are looking down on you. It is just that you are not qualified enough to negotiate with us. Little rascal, call the elders of Yang family to come here. The Yang family has already sunk into the bottom of the Kiara Sea, so if you guys want to mess with us, it is actually not a wise move. Yu Qin didn't say anything, instead, she kept pacing back and forth in one place with flows of gentle aura emitted from her body, sensing the situation here. If it wasn't for you, having united with the demon dwellers to deal with the Yang family, The demon dwellers couldn't have entered the Kiara Sea and you would not have encountered the current difficult situation. Shi Yang suddenly harumphed, said daringly, "The reason that the demon dwellers have invaded the Kiara Sea is because of your stupidity. I didn't think that you have even repented of what you have done." "What?" Inside of Jiyu Shao's eyes flashed up a sword-shaped lightning, which quickly dashed towards Shi Yang. That sword-shaped lightning, which was as long as a finger, suddenly shot out incomparable sword aura. That small lightning also contained dozens of tremendous sword shadows, which covered the entire sky and earth as though they wanted to tear the sky down. As soon as those sword shadows went into Shi Yang's eyes, they immediately turned into thousands of giant swords plunging down from the sky. The sword shadows appeared everywhere, which brought him a feeling of helplessness. He couldn't do anything but to let them cut him up into pieces. With just one lightning surge flaring up from Jiyu Shao's eyes, Shi Yang couldn't even have one defending reaction. Swoosh! A black ink feather suddenly appeared in front of Shi Yang. This black feather swung about, emitting thousands of rippling black waves. As soon as those waves had diffused, the entire heaven and earth were covered by a black hue. Daytime instantly turned into nighttime in a blink of an eye. Boom, boom, boom! A series of earth-shaking explosive sounds came out. While Shi Yang was still in a daze, he heard Jiyu Shao's scream. In the next blink, the darkness no longer existed, then daylight reappeared. Jiyu Shao's face looked very confused. He shouted in fear. "There are God Realm warriors indeed. Or the sky apart. Either or. You ate a slice of whole grain bread, not the entire loaf." Chapter 286, Strong. Chapter 286, Strong. Di Shan looked very calm, stood in front of Shi Yang in silence, spreading out his black wings. Cyclones of forces, which could be seen by ordinary eyes, were projected successively from his wings, covering the entire space around Shi Yang. The ink-black light circles appeared one by one next to Shi Yang and then slowly diffused outwards. Dreary and anomalous aura, which was like ocean tides, densely gathered around Shi Yang. This aura didn't seem to be afraid of the sword's attack or the full power strikes of the God Realm warriors. Jiyu Shao's eyes shot out the lightning. His face turned to be serious and frigid. Pagan tribe? Di Shan's black wings were eye-catching. As soon as he appeared, his origin was instantly disclosed. The Kiara Sea's current situation was very complicated. Dealing with the demon dwellers' invasions was extremely urgent. At this critical moment, Di Shan's appearance was very sensational. Especially when Di Shan had the cultivation base of the God Realm. "So what?" Di Shan was ignorant, he faintly said. "We are from the chasm battlefield and have desired this fertile land for so very long. This land used to be our martial arena before. As we had left this land for quite a long time, you have occupied it. Since we have now come back, we are entitled to get a part of the resources which had originally belonged to us." Jiyu Shao's countenance changed slightly. Yu Qin was also sputtered with fear. "You guys also want to have a part of the soup bowl?" Jiyu Shap took a deep breath. His manner was not very normal. "At this critical time, your request is hard to be settled. However, you alone don't have enough strength to get anything of the Kiara Sea." Many violent flows of sword intents were then shot out from Jiyu Shao's body. The dazzling and blinding five-color sword aura, which was like the lightning growling and howling in the sky, dashed straight towards Di Shan, bringing along its destructive power. Streams of the sword auras were as tiny as small snakes slithering throughout the entire sky and earth. The sword auras then tore the air into pieces. In the middle of those ear-piercing sounds, the space surrounding Di Shan cracked open, creating many beautiful five-colored rifts. The attraction forces massively flowed out from those rifts as if it wanted to swallow up everything. Numerous wooden houses were pulled up from the ground and then flew straight into those space rifts. At the foot of the Snow Dragon Mountain, even big rocks which were like small mountains couldn't have resisted that attraction force. They constantly flew up and were drawn into those five-colored space rifts. Then they all disappeared just in a flash. Shi Yang's face had tragically changed with fear. One strike of a God Realm warrior was earth-shaking indeed. It was unexpectedly tearing apart the air, cracking open many rifts of space which could have swallowed up everything. The most terrifying thing were the heaven-shaking sword intents, which had been projected by Jiyu Shao. Under the control of those heaven-shaking sword intents, those splits of space could be urged by Jiyu Shao, constantly changing their directions according to his wish. This was the first time that Shi Yang saw the horrendous forces of a God Realm warrior with his own eyes. The mightiness which Jiyu Shao was displaying severely frightened Shi Yang. He was a little bit worried for Di Shan. According to Yu Ru, Di Shan was the highest-level warrior of the Wings race with the anomalous and unpredictable cultivation base, which was as if it could have changed the entire sky and earth. However, Shi Yang had never witnessed Di Shan's real ability. Although Shi Yang knew that the body of Wings race's people was very sturdy and mighty, together with their forces which were much more powerful than that of the other warriors at the same level, he was still a little worried. He was afraid that Di Shan would be defeated under Jiyu Shao's violent assault. Di Shan's eyes were slightly half-closed. His black wings flapped gently. Circles of ink-black light slowly spread progressively. Those circles of black lights had been linked together, each circle interlocked with another one. In the middle of the links, a black light was sparkling non-stop and then spread out everywhere. A flow of devilish murderous auras had quietly diffused. Those circles of black light gradually made contact with the space rifts, covering the sword halos. Di Shan took action softly and gently like floating clouds and mild blowing breeze. His manner was very deliberate without any signs of being greatly intimidated. But Jiyu Shao's eyes suddenly became panicked. Those circles of black light seemed to have eyes. They had locked all of Jiyu Shao's sword halos and sword intents just in a very short time. Crack! A crispy sound resounded. The sword halos were crushed into numerous light spots, then vanished into those rifts of space. Only a short while later, all of those rifts closed. The circles of black light that were spinning inside those rifts suddenly swelled and then exploded, shooting out countless dazzling black rays. Jiyu Shao's body trembled slightly. His eyes beamed out a frightening light. He silently stepped backwards a little bit and stood shoulder to shoulder with Yu Qin. Di Shan was still imposingly motionless. Only his black wings had stopped flapping. He quietly looked at Jiyu Shao and then swept his despising look to Yu Qin, who was about to take action. What? You two want to unite to fight with me? Jiyu Shao didn't answer. His face didn't look pleasant. Yu Qin shouted slightly, the wrinkles on her face stiffened. Peculiar white lights like ripples of water moved on her lenient wrinkled face. Her body, which was originally bending, now gradually straightened up. Her clothes fluttered. Under Shi Yang's scrutinized look, the wrinkles on the face of the 8-year-old woman quickly disappeared. After only a few seconds, her face turned to be soft and white like the face of a young maiden. Even her neck and ears were also changing rapidly as her skin became smoother, more like velvet, elastic and resilient. Her height had also increased 5 or 6 centimeters more. Only in a short time, the head of the Heaven Lake Divine Land was as if she had just unexpectedly been restored to life, turning into a beautiful 30-year-old woman even though she had almost stepped into a coffin. Her skin was now creamy white, her beautiful eyes were full of tumbling waves, and her body was full of vitality. Divine Mother is about to take action. In the 4-story wooden house, Chu Yangqing's beautiful face changed dramatically. Her body trembled slightly and her eyes were full of confusion. The legend turns out to be true, Cao Zilan mumbled to herself. Once she takes action, she immediately restores her youth and maintains the peak level status. The magical Upanishads of the Heaven Lake Divine Land is really terrifying. It is the blessings from God as I am witnessing this now. Regretfully, she will not get anything good from the fight either. Panja agreed in silence, nodded his head while smiling miserably. I just hope that the situation will not be getting worse. I am afraid it will be. Cao Zilan shook her head. She instantly realized something and couldn't help but slightly scream out with a strange face. 3 warriors were sitting next to Pan Zhe from the Heaven Lake Divine Land and Jiyu family alternatively. These 3 warriors were similar to Pan Zhe, also lucky to survive after having been Shi Yang's sole experimental test subjects. At this time, these 3 warriors seemed to be forcefully pulled out, their faces were instilled with full of fear. Their bodies slowly flew up to the air, quickly floated out of the range of the defensive formation, then appeared in the void in front of Shi Yang. Under the attentive eyes of Cao Zhilan, Jiyu Linglong, Pan Zhe, and Hua Meng, Shi Yang faintly smiled, pointed at those 3 warriors who were being confined by some unknown forces and then shouted, "Explode." Boom boom boom. 3 skull-piercing sounds came up from the 3 warriors that had exploded. Those 3 warriors, who were frightened and panicked, were killed just in a flash. Their skulls had cracked apart and fresh blood splattered from the top of their heads. They instantaneously died on the spot. Jiyu Shao's and Yu Qin's faces turned purple with murderous rage. This is just the start. Shi Yang turned his head back, looking at the group of Jiyu Linglong and Hua Meng behind from a distance. He smirked wickedly and pointed towards those people. Suddenly, Jiyu Linglong and Chu Yang Qing, the 2 girls, were tied up by some forces, then uncontrollably leaped up. Cao Zhilan, Hua Meng, Huang Nan, and He Qing Man were all horrified with frightened faces, and dazedly looked at these 2 girls slowly rising up. After the death of the 3 warriors, Cao Zhilan understood that a slaughter would probably ensue. As she looked at Shi Yang's cruel smile, she felt powerless and frightened. "Don't!" He Qing Man begged miserably, "Shi Yang, please don't. I know you can see us. Please let them go, don't kill them." Shi Yang wasn't moved, his eyes displayed an unconcerned look. The delicate bodies of Jiyu Linglong and Chu Yang Qing trembled and they couldn't restrain their fears. They stared at Shi Yang, who appeared to be coming closer and closer, thus they started to have thoughts of hopelessness. "Little Linglong, Qinga." Jiyu Shao, Yu Qin goggled, then became panicked, and couldn't help but scream out. The positions of the 3 previous warriors were probably not high enough. "I think these 2 girls should be enough then." Shi Yang's face was calm, his voice was cold. He looked at Jiyu Linglong and Chu Yang Qing, then shook his head while saying, regretfully, "I haven't even really interacted with you yet. Little rascal, you win." Jiyu Shao let out a sigh, all of the sharp swords on his body vanished in a blink. The smooth and white face of Yu Qin slightly shivered, wrinkles reappeared on her face in just a short time, and she regained her 8-year-old appearance. Her lenient face could not be disguised any longer. Yu Qin angrily looked at Shi Yang and shouted, "What do you want after all?" "What do I want?" Shi Yang seriously thought for a while before shaking his head. "I haven't thought of anything yet. But, if you are really obedient, they can continue to live." Jiyu Shao's and Yu Qin's eyes were full of anger, but they couldn't do anything. It wasn't that they didn't want to save Jiyu Linglong and Chu Yang Qing. However, Shi Yang didn't have any moves and Di Shan didn't take any action nor released any forces. This meant the person who had brought Jiyu Linglong and Chu Yang Qing out was not them, but someone else. Jiyu Shao and Yu Qin were both God Realm warriors. They were quietly sensing around but couldn't locate the aura of that secret person. This had scared the both of them a lot. Moreover, they didn't know whether that hidden person had placed any formation techniques on Jiyu Linglong and Chu Yang Qing or not. Therefore, they didn't dare to take any risks, and could only accept to lose unpleasingly. "We will not take any actions anymore," Jiyu Shao confirmed with a strange face. Yu Qin nodded reluctantly. "That's okay." Shi Yang revealed a smile, but actually, he was very cold-hearted inside. He waved his hands towards a place to signal for someone to bring these 2 beautiful girls back. Under Jiyu Shao and Yu Qin's scrutinized look, Jiyu Linglong and Chu Yang Qing were like wooden statues that slowly floated backwards and then disappeared abnormally. Jiyu Shao's and Yu Qin's face changed again. The precautions increased in their eyes. "Now, can we discuss decently?" After the 2 girls had returned to the wooden house, Shi Yang deliberately clasped his hands again with the same respectful manner as earlier. "Predecessors, please take a seat." Although Shi Yang had invited them to sit, there weren't any chairs there. Jiyu Shao and Yu Qin harumphed and then sat down cross-legged on the hard ground with resentful faces. They looked at Shi Yang, wondering what he had wanted after all. "Let's talk about the compensation," Shi Yang said with a smile. Chapter 287, The Declaration of Love. Chapter 287, The declaration of love. Compensation? Ji Yushao and Yu Qin coldly harumphed at the same time. Their eyes were even more frigid, the corner of their mouths beamed out disdainfully. What does the Ji family owe you? Ji Yushao didn't bother to look at Shi Yang, instead, he stared at Di Shan. You are from the chasm battlefield. The Ji family has never met you before. I don't know how the Ji family is related to your tribe. We and the Yang family are allies. Di Shan looked indifferent, didn't want to talk with Ji Yushao any further. He pointed at Shi Yang and said, let him discuss it with you. That guy. Ji Yushao's face was astonished. He can speak for you. Yes, he can. Ji Yushao and Yu Qin exchanged their looks in shock. The way they looked at Shi Yang now had a little change. Shi Yang only had the Earthrealm cultivation base. In their eyes, he was just a puppet who was controlled by Di Shan and another hidden person in the dark. He shouldn't have any rights to talk. From the beginning, Ji Yushao and Yu Qin hadn't really respected Shi Yang. Although Shi Yang had also shown his sturdiness, they had thought that Shi Yang just simply followed Di Shan's orders, as they hadn't assumed that he could be the one who would have discussed it with them. However, from what Di Shan had said, Ji Yushao and Yu Qin understood that their judgment was probably wrong. By this time, they started to look straight at Shi Yang and considered him a person who could talk to them equally. All right, Ji Yushao knitted his eyebrows unpleasingly and said, you said something about compensation? What do we owe you? Uniting with each other to deal with the Yang family, making a mess at the Kiara Sea, taking action arbitrarily in the Yang family's territory. Those are your mistakes. Shi Yang was confronting Ji Yushao and Yu Qin, the two famous persons of the entire Kiara Sea, but he wasn't scared of them. Instead, he was talking confidently. Your stupidity has led to the invasion of the demon dwellers, the fall of Kiara Sea, and the current difficult situation in the entire area. Everything is because of your mistakes. Ji Yushao and Yu Qin coldly harumphed simultaneously. Their faces looked unpleasant and became more serious. They were not hasty to explain anything yet. Shi Yang smirked, contemplated for a while before continuing, it looks like if I don't tell you more practically, you will not cooperate. What? Ji Yushao's eyes flashed up a furious light. More practical? The Ji family and the Heaven Lake Divine Land, each of you will give us 5 of your islands that are in the adjacent area of the Wind Cloud Island. They used to belong to the Yang family. A total of 10 islands. The names of those islands are Ice Moon Island, Windstar Island. Shi Yang took his time to name all the islands which he had already carefully checked. While hearing what Shi Yang was saying, Ji Yushao's and Yu Qin's faces were getting more unpleasant, but they still restrained their anger. Their eyes were chilled to the bone. Damn it. The Ji family have made our efforts to exploit those 5 islands. Every of them has either mineral springs or herbal mountains. This little rascal is dreaming. He even dares to intimidate the Ji family. Inside the 4-story wooden house, Ji Ling Lung suddenly stood up. She was so resentful that she couldn't storm out and have a life-and-death fight with Shi Yang. Hua Meng grabbed one of her arms and pulled her back. The powerlessness was showed on his emaciated face. Lady, please don't be agitated. It's useless if you go out now. Instead, you will distract our headman. Ji Ling Lung's charming body wriggled for a while but couldn't get out of Hua Meng's grip. She shouted angrily, Shi Yang, you are such a bastard. At this time when we are all facing the demon dwellers' invasion, you still don't care for the major matters. You will have to repay sooner or later. Shi Yang coldly smiled, glancing at Ji Ling Lung from a distance. He raised his left arm and flapped in the air. Ji Ling Lung's body slightly trembled, her eyes flashed up a panicky light as her small face instantly reddened. In the abandoned land, every time she acted like a tigress showing her fangs and claws, Shi Yang immediately gave her a lesson. Shi Yang had done this movement so many times before, which was using his hand spanking her round jade-like butt. After this, the marks of Shi Yang's hand had always remained on her butt. As seeing Shi Yang flapping his hands in the air, Ji Ling Lung remembered her disgraceful life from before, feeling both ashamed and angry. Her agitations completely disappeared. Ji Ling Lung quietly released a sigh, shaking her head while saying to Huang Nan next to her, "Those 5 islands gather a lot of precious resources of our Heaven Lake divine land. His request is too much." Huang Nan's eyes were full of anger. That little rascal is having a daydream. Divine Mother absolutely will not give these 5 islands to the Yang family. Chu Yangqing nodded her head and said, "Definitely not. Nothing is impossible." Cao Zilan's hands were placed on the window, her delicate body slightly bent down, her round but perked up creating a fascinating curve. She looked at Shi Yang from a distance with a leisurely manner. Her voice seemed a little strange. He is not just merely shooting an arrow. If he's given out this request, he definitely has some backup plans. As from what I've seen, he will probably get what he wants. It is impossible. Jiyu Linglung and Chu Yangqing shouted at the same time. He Qing Man also stood up, looked at Cao Zilan incomprehensively. "Lady Cao, why do you feel that Shi Yang will achieve his purpose? You guys listen to it by yourselves." Cao Zilan revealed a big smile like hundreds of flowers blossoming. "Nothing could compare with her beauty right now. You base on what to have that request?" The sword auras torrentially emitted from Jiyu Shao's body. Although his face still remained calm, his 10 fingers were sparkling with sword halos like snakes wriggling and showing their fangs, bringing people a terrifying feeling of the extremely sharp and tremendous sword posture. "Based on what?" Shi Yang knitted his eyebrows as though he was contemplating, then said with a smirk, "If you can't fulfill my request, you go ahead start the fight. At this point of time, you can't even deal with the demon dwellers. If our forces jump in, I believe the name Heaven Lake Divine Land and Jiyu family will be wiped out of the Kiara Sea." As soon as Shi Yang finished those words, there suddenly appeared a flow of horrendous auras which could destroy bones and souls. The 3rd God Realm warriors. Yu Qin was panicked. She couldn't control her emotion anymore, suddenly stood up. She looked towards the peak of the mountain which was not far away with strange lights flaring up from her eyes. Behind the peak of that mountain, next to a pointed icicle, Kaba was laughing out loud, walking over to the side of Yu Ru and Ya Meng then said, "At first, Yi Tianmo has asked me to disclose my aura just a little bit to give them more pressure. But unexpectedly, our master has had a wicked intention already. He told all of us to hide, only threaten them little by little. This makes people even more miserable than displaying all the powers at once." Ya Meng's face looked brutal. These 2 guys really overestimate themselves. If they back us to the corner, we just capture both of them then. "Don't rush," Yu Ru smiled and said with a low voice, "At this Kiara Sea, we are considered pagan races. If we become the enemy of all human warriors in this entire area, we will encounter many difficulties later. Our master is still young but not stupid, he knows how we can get the most benefits." Kaba nodded and said sincerely, "Master's uprightness is exceptional indeed. Although he is only an Earthrealm warrior, he isn't scared of the 2 Godrealm warriors. Instead, he dares to intimidate his opponents. He really has qualifications of an outstanding hero." While the 3 of them, Kaba, Ya Meng, and Yu Ru were discussing there, Jiyu Shao and Yu Qin were restlessly worried as if they were sitting on fire over there. "You have other 3 God Realm warriors?" Jiyu Shao took a deep breath, finally started to feel insecure. 3 God Realm warriors. Very few forces at the Kiara Sea can resist this force. However, if human warriors of the Kiara Sea unite with each other, defeating you is not that difficult. Jiyu Shao clenched his teeth with frigid eyes, then said, "Don't push us too much. It is you alone who are pushing yourself." Shi Yang wasn't scared at all. He coldly glared at Jiyu Shao and said, "If you don't agree, so wait until I unite with the demon dwellers to wipe out your names." "You dare to cooperate with the demon dwellers?" Jiyu Shao's and Yu Qin's faces changed again. "What?" Shi Yang pretended to be astonished. "You seem to be very surprised. It isn't what you've never done before. Why do you think joining with demon dwellers is treason and heresy? When you and the demon dwellers had united with each other to deal with Yang family, didn't you also have the same thought?" Jiyu Shao and Yu Qin got bewildered, couldn't say anything. "I don't want to talk too much," Shi Yang harumphed and said, "Each of you gives us 5 islands, we will remain calm," and Jiyu Linglung, Chu Yangqing, Hua Meng, Huang Nan can be still alive. But, if you don't hand over the islands, not only the 4 of them have to die but also 2 of you will be buried with them. After finishing these words, Shi Yang stood up, walked straight towards Cao Zhilan and others in the house without even glancing at Ji Yushao and Yu Qin. When he turned around, he coldly said to 2 of them, "I'll give you 1 hour to consider." Ji Yushao's and Yu Qin's faces kept changing, as their eyes looked dazed. They stood still on the spot, being filled with anxiety. When Shi Yang went through the sole defensive formation that Yi Tianmo had set up, Yi Tianmo suddenly showed up from nowhere, quietly nodded towards Shi Yang implicating that everything was still under control. Shi Yang smiled without saying anything. He then walked slowly into the floor where the group of Cao Zhilan and others were waiting. His eyes swept over Jiyu Linglung, who was gritting her teeth with hatred, then moved his eyes to He Qing Man, who was having a confused face, and said, "If there aren't any unexpected things, you can leave today." "You bastard!" Jiyu Linglung shouted with anger. "I didn't expect that you fish in troubled water. You have to repay for your mistakes." Shi Yang's face got more serious, his eyes sharpened. "If it weren't because of your stupidity, Yang family would be still at the Kiara Sea and the demon dwellers wouldn't have intruded. As you have done wrong, you have to compensate for it." "Shi Yang, I agree with what you've said." Cao Zhilan revealed a smile and flattered him all of a sudden. "Cao family has made mistake. If you have the same request with Cao family, I can stand up to make Cao family hand over 5 islands as a compensation." Cao Zhilan leaned against the window. Her body exposed fascinating curves, her eyes flared up a wise light as she emanated mesmerizing glows. Pan Zhe and Hua Meng quietly swallowed. They wondered why this beautiful girl suddenly became so illustrious like this. "You can speak for Cao family?" Shi Yang was astonished. "Of course." Cao Zhilan revealed a big smile. Her pink lips curled up, she looked very lustful. "I can also control my own future. Shi Yang, if you want to marry me, Cao family can take 10 islands as my dowry. So, have you ever thought about this? Ha ha ha, if you do, I will be responsible for my words." When Cao Zhilan uttered those words, she didn't felt ashamed at all, as if she was actually discussing some major things in a serious manner. Shi Yang's eyes and mouths were wide opened. Chapter 288, The Invitation of the 3 Gods Sect. Chapter 288, The Invitation of the 3 Gods Sect. Outside of the defensive formation, Di Shan was standing imposingly, coldly looking at the 2 people opposite him. Yu Qin and Ji Yushao were whispering in the discussion. Their faces constantly changed, their eyes flashed up complicating lights, and their eyebrows kept knitting tightly. They were obviously frustrated. Inside of the defensive formation, from a distance of 50 meters, with an astonished face, Yi Tianmo looked at that incomparably appealing woman who was talking to Shi Yang with an unimaginable manner. On the ground floor, a bunch of people, including Hua Meng, Huang Nan, Jiyu Linglung, Pan Zhe, Chu Yangqing, and He Qing Man, was all wearing strange faces. They bewilderedly looked at Cao Zhilan, who was ranked number 3 in the power rankings and was considered the popular outstanding leader of the new generation of the Cao family. They didn't expect that she was able to utter those superficial words that could unpleasantly pierce through the other's ears. Was she serious? She was the leader of Cao family's new generation, ranking the peak Earth realm, extremely beautiful, the goddess who allured and mesmerized numerous outstanding guys at the endless sea. Still, she proactively suggested getting married to Shi Yang. Hua Meng and Huang Nan goggled, looking at each other, doubted whether they had heard it right or not. Pan Zhe's face was extremely bizarre, shaking his head constantly as if he didn't want to believe what was happening in front of his eyes. Shi Yang was also in a daze, knitted his eyebrows while contemplating without saying a word. Miss Cao?" He Qing Man was full of confusion. She asked with a strange voice, "Jie, what do you want to do?" "Lan Jie, I didn't hear it wrong." Jiyu Linglung raised her fist up, forming a posture which looked like she wanted to stamp the ground. "Has that little rascal planted some formation technique inside your soul? If not, how come did you rave like this?" Other people's face brightened, they quietly nodded in agreement with this idea. They looked at Shi Yang again with full of disdain and precautions. He isn't that boring. Cao Zilan only smiled. Her small mouth curled up as her beautiful eyes rippled with many strange lights. Shi Yang, what do you think about my suggestion? Shi Yang contemplated without speaking. His face was very bizarre. In the Endless Sea, the martial spirit palace, the Yang family, the Cao family, and the Three Gods sect are the most powerful forces. In recent years, although the Cao family has never taken any major actions, no one dares to deny the Cao family's real ability. The Cao family's status in the Tutor Sea is quite similar to the Yang family at the Kiara Sea before. If you marry me, the Cao family will be the strongest ally of the Yang family. Moreover, I assume that I deserve to be your wife more than Xia Xinyan. Either my background or my ability is much better than hers. Besides, I do believe my appearance is not less than hers either. Cao Zilan wore a big smile. Her beautiful eyes stared at Shi Yang. So, if you consider this proposal carefully, you will see that it will bring you a lot of benefits. Miss Cao, will you love me? After contemplating for a while, Shi Yang suddenly revealed a smirk with a strange light flashing up from his eyes. I want to ask you, why? Why are you proposing to me? I believe that many men who have higher cultivation base than mine. The Yang family has currently collapsed. My status is not worth mentioning. Why did you come up with this proposal? I believe in you. Cao Zilan beamed out a faint smile. Her radiantly beautiful eyes sparked lively lights. I believe in your future, which will be more glorious than all the other men that I've met in the Endless Sea. I think that my life will be very colorful being with you. In short, I have respect for you. Shi Yang was surprised. The other people in the wooden house were also astonished with their wide-open eyes and mouths. They all had strange faces and felt that Cao Zilan had gone crazy. Lam Jie, you disappoint me. Jiu Ling Lung stamped her foot as she was so angry that she almost exploded. This little rascal is a despicable bastard, extremely disgusting, self-seeking, and very arrogant. How could that kind of person deserve you? Chu Yangqing also slightly shook her head as she obviously didn't understand either. Only He Qing Man cocked her head, considering for a while. After she recalled Xia Xinyan's judgments for Shi Yang, she gradually figured out some clues, ambiguously felt that Cao Zilan's daring proposal should have a reason. She knew Cao Zilan in the Endless Sea was famous not only for her martial strength but also for her acceptably exceptional wisdom. An elegant, pure, intelligent, and beautiful girl like her didn't even try to show her nobleness. Instead, she bravely threw Shi Yang an olive sprig. Has she gone insane? Following this flow of thoughts, He Qing Man quietly evaluated Shi Yang. She suddenly remembered that Shi Yang had only been at the disaster realm before he entered the chasm battlefield. As of now, after just 2 years, he had already reached the peak Earth realm. This breakthrough speed was earth-shaking. A series of thoughts flashed up in He Qing Man's head, which had surprised her even more. The more she thought, the more logical things had become. After this, the way she looked at Cao Zilan was more admirable. He Qing Man admired this girl's hardiness, her beautiful eyes, and her manners when dealing with major matters. Xinyan Jie, where are you? Someone wants to steal your man. She is also a strong opponent. You have to be careful, He Qing Man thought to herself. Shi Yang, tell me if I am pretty. Cao Zilan slenderly swayed her delicate body around in front of Shi Yang. Her full breasts were prominent, and her waist was small. She looked like a fresh flower which could attract others to be immersed in it and never want to wake up again. You are really beautiful. Shi Yang revealed a faint smile. His flaming and lustful eyes scanned her wonderful body up and down. Among the girls that I know, only Xia Xinyan's face can compare with your beautiful one. Shi Yang mused for a while, then said with a thoughtful face. It is just that I don't have any intentions to get married nor have children for now, nor bind my marriage with the family's major matters. If I like a woman, I won't care about her background or forces nor if she can help me or not. It will be merely my love for her, and it wouldn't be related to anything else. After saying that, under the puzzled eyes of the others, Shi Yang immediately left, walking outside of the house without caring about Cao Zilan. Jiyu Shao and Yu Qin had stopped discussing. Their faces were gloomy, a little discontented and angry. Shi Yang appeared quietly and then said with a smile, "How are you considering it?" "We agree with your request." Jiyu Shao took a deep breath, forcefully restrained his anger and shouted, "Let my people go." "Okay." Shi Yang raised his hand in the air and said with a very pleasing manner, "Release them." The defensive formation, which looked like a moon on the bottom of a well, was instantly broken after a flow of forces zoomed over it. The group of Hua Meng, Jiyu Linglung, and the others immediately appeared from the defensive formation. Cao Zilan was still in a daze. "You guys can go now." Shi Yang pointed toward that group, and then he turned his head around to look at Jiyu Shao and Yu Qin and said, "You will send your people to hand over those 10 islands to the Xia family. I know the Xia family is currently living in the Wing Cloud Island, which is in between your two forces. Do you understand what I mean?" Jiyu Shao slightly harumphed and nodded with rage. "That's good." Shi Yang revealed a faint smile. "You guys can bring your people out of here. I'll assure that once you and the demon dwellers engage fighting, we will just stay on the mountain and watch the fight. We will not get involved in it." Jiyu Shao and Yu Qin were full of hatred and certainly had some other plans. They looked at Jiyu Linglung and Chu Yangqing and nodded, implicating that they wanted to leave the Snow Dragon Island right away. But, right at this time, an unusual phenomenon happened in the sky. A strange beast with flames all over its body slowly descended from the sky. That beast was as big as a small mountain, its body was sturdy, and its gestures was magnificent. "Flame unicorn!" Jiyu Shao screamed out with his shocked face. "Tang Yuan is here." The Snow Dragon Island's weather was usually very cool but became hotter after the flame unicorn came. Thick frozen snow on the peak of the Snow Dragon Mountain started to melt. White fogs dispersed and gathered up in the sky. The level 8 flame unicorn was the mount of the hierarch in power of the three gods sect, the sun god Tang Yuan. Di Shan harumphed, raised his head looking at the flame unicorn which was slowly descending with an unjoyful face. Jiyu Shao's and Yu Qin's faces were shocked. They felt a little bit more powerful when the flame unicorn had appeared. However, they realized that there seemed to be no one riding on the flame unicorn. "What?" Jiyu Shao and Yu Qin were amazed, released their soul consciousness to check and discovered that the flame unicorn came here alone. The hierarch in power, Tang Yuan of the three gods sect, didn't show up. "Who is in charge here?" A powerful and rude voice echoed from the flame unicorn. This level 8 beast could open its mouth and speak the human language. Flames rose inside its big pupils. The scorching aura on its body was like the condensed sunlight. "It's me." Shi Yang raised his head and smiled. "Was the information that was delivered to the three gods sect from you?" The flame unicorn asked. "Yeah." Shi Yang nodded his head. "The hierarch has satisfied your request and willingly hand over 5 islands. Moreover, the hierarch hopes that you can visit our headquarters. He said that he has something important to discuss with you. That is the invitation card." When the solemn voice of the flame unicorn still echoed through the entire island, a splendid yellow card from the sky slowly floated down on the ground in front of Shi Yang. "Okay. Please tell your hierarch that we will pay the headquarters of the three gods sect a visit." Shi Yang lifted the corner of his mouth, revealing a smile, looking towards Jiyu Shao and Yu Qin who were indescribably panicked and said, "Tang Yuan is summoning all the high-class warriors from everywhere to gather in the three gods sect. You guys should also be invited. We will meet again in a few days." Jiyu Shao and Yu Qin exchanged glances, seeing the incomprehensive look in each other's eyes. 7 days later, the top-class warriors from everywhere will gather at the headquarters of the sect. "Don't be late." The flame unicorn transmitted the last message and then slowly leaped up and left. Shi Yang nodded with a cold smile and said, "I won't send you off then." "Did you also contact Tang Yuan?" Jiyu Shao's face was full of astonishment. Even Tang Yuan had gotten intimidated by you? Intimidate? Shi Yang shook his head. "Not that intimidated. It is just a cooperation. They are much more open-minded than you. After I've told them the pros and cons, although I don't have any of their weaknesses at hand, they are still willing to hand over the 5 islands to me. Compared to Tang Yuan Nan, the 2 of you are very stingy. No wonder why you guys are not as strong as the 3 gods sect. That has a reason indeed. Ji Shao's face looked very unpleasant. All right. We will meet again in 7 days. Shi Yang mumbled. By that time, if you have any suggestions, you can bring it up. But, if you don't keep your words, ha ha ha, you know how people can do anything if they get irritated. Ji Shao and Yu Qin were extremely indignant. They glared at Shi Yang with an annoyed look, harumphed coldly before leaping up, bringing Jiu Ling Lung, Chu Yang Qing, and the other people along. Take your time, I won't send you off. Chapter 289, Shi Yang's Request. Chapter 289, Shi Yang's Request. The Wind Cloud Island. If it continues like this, things will get worse for sure. Xia Ruishing's face was somber. He was standing on a bare mountain, slightly bending down towards the headman Xia Shunchuan, then said, "These uncultivated islands don't have any mineral springs nor herbal mountains. The sky and earth aura are diluted, which is not suitable for warriors to cultivate. Our cultivation cannot be improved at all if we live here." 10 subordinate high-class warriors of the Xia family were surrounding Xia Shunchuan. Most of them were at the Nirvana realm. They all showed their consent in silence. The Xia family is one of the 15 big forces of the Endless Sea anyway. As we have recently declined this much, it is tough to stand. One high-class warrior said with a low voice. "Master, the Xia family is in the most critical and dangerous situation. Please come up with a solution soon. Taking Xia Xinyan's whole life's happiness to exchange for the Xia family's stability is very adequate." Xia Ruishing nodded and said, "Master, being a daughter of the Xia family, she is supposed to sacrifice herself for the family. Thus, Xia Xinyan can't refuse this duty. If I had an eligible daughter like this, I wouldn't have hesitated to offer my daughter." Xia Ruishing's words were so sharp as if they could cut through nails and irons. The Xia family's 5 Sky Realm elderly warriors with snow-white hair were standing behind Xia Ruishing. All of them contemplated and didn't utter a word. Nirvana realm already. Xia Shunchuan's countenance was not quite good. He coldly swept his eyes over everyone, then finally turned his head and slightly bent down to ask the 5 elders of the Xia family. 5 elders, Xia Xinyan is the hope of the Xia family. With her realm improvement, her cultivation will definitely surpass all of ours in the future. If she stays with the Xia family, we will have a chance to rebel again. But, if she is given in marriage to a force with bad intentions, her life will probably be wastefully destroyed. The Endless Sea's situation could be changed just in a blink of an eye. Now, the demon dwellers have massively intruded. I am afraid we can't wait that long. Xia Ruishing also bent down respectfully towards a short, fat elder with many wrinkles and said, "Great elder, if the Xia family doesn't display any demeanors, I think we will soon decline. According to the current situation, we have to unite with other forces, otherwise, we will either be killed by the demon dwellers or become the sacrificed object of the other forces." Xia Ruishing also got the point. The great elder gently nodded. Xia Shunchuan's face slightly changed. Swoosh. A blue figure zoomed towards them from a distance, then appeared in the middle of these people in a blink. "If you insist on sacrificing me, I will leave the Xia family." Xia Xinyan's face was cold. Her manner was as if she had willingly ruptured the relationship with those people. "Rubbish." Xia Shunchuan shouted frigidly and annoyedly, "You have no right to get involved in the main matters of the family. No matter what decision the family makes, you are not allowed to give any judgment." "Father." Xia Xinyan was in extreme rage. "This is the major matter of my entire life. I'm not going to allow you to decide for me carelessly. Is it because of the little rascal Shi Yang?" Xia Ruishing smiled coldly. "Xia Xinyan, you should understand the situation. I remember that you used to sacrifice everything for this family. Why have you changed since you've met that little rascal? The Yang family is done, the Kiara Sea has lost. Shi Yang in the chasm battlefield could hardly avoid death. So, why do you need to be persistent and miserable only because of one dead man?" Xia Xinyan's eyebrows slammed together, Her eyes shot out murderous aura. Who said he's dead? She continued after harumphing, even if you are dead, he will not be. Sass. Xia Ruishing's face turned purple with rage. He immediately talked to the 5 elders. Elders, as you can see, this girl has betrayed us. Our headman is even nothing in her eyes. If this thing continues to be like this, I am afraid no one can control her. If so, it's better to give her away in marriage. After hearing those words, the 5 elders of Xia family contemplated and considered carefully. You go get married if you want. Xia Xinyan even didn't want to open her mouth. She glanced at Xia Shunchuan for a while and said, Father, I'll go now. Don't mess around anymore. Xia Shunchuan knitted his eyebrows while saying unhappily, things haven't been finalized yet. Forgive me, may I have a word? At this time, all of a sudden, Ju Yu slightly bent down towards the 5 elders to conduct the decency before speaking. Although the Yang Tian Emperor has been confined in the 4th demon area, no one can prove that he has been killed there. Everyone knows how dangerous the Yang Tian Emperor's bloodlines are. If he is not dead even for one day, the Yang family can easily have a way to make a comeback. You all know the Yang Tian Emperor's personality, so should we consider it carefully? Consider. Xia Ruishing revealed a cold smile. It's hard for Yang Tian Emperor to get out of the 4th demon area alive. Even if he can escape, he can't trouble the Xia family just because of that Shi Yang. That little rascal is just an abandoned child whom the Yang family had picked up in the middle of nowhere. How many effects can he have? This is also true. Some of the Xia family's elders gently nodded after thinking for a while. The situation was tense and unsolved. The group of Xia Shunchuan and Ju Yu was persistent with their own opinions. The other group of Xia Ruishing kept fuzzing about, asking Xia Xinyan to sacrifice herself. Those people of the Xia family on the island clattered non-stop, which was not easy to stop shortly. Xia Xinyan wanted to leave many times but was stopped by Xia Shunchuan. Because of the love for her father as well as being afraid of her father who probably had encountered a subservient situation, she couldn't help but stay observing in silence. Someone is coming. After half an hour of discussing without any positive results, Xia Shunchuan suddenly sensed something. He raised his head looking up to the sky with a suspicious face. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. The sound and figure were piercing the air and dashing forward with a fast speed from a distance. While the Xia family's people were still in an incomprehensive daze, Jiyu Zhengyang of the Jiyu family and Yu Feng of the Heaven Lake Divine Land appeared in front of those people together. The people of the Xia family immediately shut up, staring at Jiyu Zhengyang and Yu Feng with a strange look. Last time, these two people had brought Jiyu Yu and Feng Hai here to seek a marriage alliance but then deterrently left in the end. And now, 3 days later, here they were. That made the Xia family's people more cautious. They didn't know of their intentions, thus, they were a little worried. What brings you two here this time? Ju Yu frowned while asking. Jiyu Yu and Feng Hai had very bizarre countenances. They walked over to Xia Shunchuan, bent down to conduct their decency. Then, each of them took out a letter from their pockets and respectfully handed them over to Xia Shunchuan. Xia Shunchuan received the letters with suspicion, his face turned somber. What are your intentions? Xia Shunchuan harumphed. Is this the dowry? Haven't I accepted your request yet? Each of your families will give 5 resourceful islands. If this is the dowry, you are generous, but each family will hand over 5 islands. Xia Ruishing's eyes brightened, she couldn't help but slightly shout out with a happy face. The 5 elders of the Xia family were quietly jubilant as well, looking towards Xia Xinyan with an implicating look. Xia Xinyan vaguely felt that something was not right. She was resentful and was prepared to leave at any given time. Headman of Xia family, you've misunderstood us. Jiyu Zhengyang shook his head and forced a miserable smile. I have followed my father's order to give you these islands without any other intentions. Yu Feng also nodded, implicating that the Heaven Lake Divine Land was also of the same stance. When did your families suddenly become so conscientious? Xia Shunchuan coldly smiled. But I can't accept it easily like this. I don't know that if I keep these letters, what is going to happen. You should take them back. Jiyu Zhangyang and Yu Feng exchanged glances with each other, their faces displayed an abundance of shame. They felt humiliated although they wanted to explain. What happened after all? The headman Xia Shunchuan looked at these two guys and said, according to what I understand about your two leaders, they won't just causelessly hand over these islands. If I remember well, these 10 islands make up all the resources of your two families. If it were me, I would not easily give them to someone else. Can we not tell you the reasons? Yu Feng said with a forced, miserable smile. Without the reasons, I will not accept it. Xia Shunchuan shook his head. All right. Yu Feng released a sigh and said reluctantly, our Divine Mother and the headman of the Jiyu family have compensated those islands for the Yang family. In fact, these islands are supposed to be given to Shiyang, but he is persistent to ask us to hand them over to you. Therefore, we come here to hand over these islands. All the people of Xia family were dumbstruck. What did you say? Xia Ruishing's expression was like he didn't dare to believe it. He said, haven't you been mistaken? If I understand it right, you said Shiyang has threatened the two of you and forced each of you to hand over 5 islands. What did he threaten you with? How could he do that? Xia Shunchuan kept chucking his tongue and shaking his head. He obviously didn't believe what he'd just heard. Our Divine Mother and the headman of the Jiyu family had gone to the Snow Dragon Island together to see Shiyang of the Yang family. After that, they had ordered us to give these islands to the Xia family. Yu Feng bowed his head dolefully, paused a little bit before continuing, not only the Heaven Lake Divine Land and the Jiyu family, but I've heard that Tang Yuan of the Three Gods sect has also fulfilled Shiyang's request, handing over 5 islands of theirs. The Xia families goggled to the extreme. Xinyan. Xia Shunchuan's visage was very bizarre, looking at Xia Xinyan in panic. That little rascal, he has such powerful capacities like this. Xia Xinyan was a little amazed. She shook her head and said, it's been a very long time since I had last met him. I don't know either. Xinyan, Uncle Ju is impressed. Ju Yu released a sigh. It seems that no one in the Xia family has keen eyes but you. The 5 elders of the Xia family also nodded quietly and complimented her altogether with delight faces. That's it. Jiyu Zhangyang bent down with an amicable manner. I hope that you will quickly inform Shiyang that you've received the islands to avoid the mistakenness. My father has told me not to let him have any misunderstandings. You have to tell him that we haven't threatened you with anything. Xia Ruishing nodded as if he had lost his soul. It seemed like he was dreaming right now. You have to inform Shiyang to avoid any misunderstandings. Yu Feng had also reminded again before leaving. Xia Xinyan looked like she had gotten lost in a mist of clouds. What did Shiyang do to have dominated Jiyu Shao and Yu Qin, who were famous for being stingy? Chapter 290, Dragon Horn Clan Ma Chi Jie. Chapter 290, Dragon Horn Clan Ma Chi Jie. Snowflakes were scattering about, and the wind could chill an unsuspecting person to the bone. Snow blanketed the peaks of the mountains with a white coat. The icicles were pellucid and sparkling. Under the sunlight, they looked like splendid sharp swords. At the foot of the mountain, houses were covered with a thick layer of ice. On the awnings of the houses, there remained many long icicles. Inside the 4-story house, He Ching Man was wearing a snow fox feather coat, subconsciously rubbed her palms and then blew out a small flow of warm air. She then mumbled, why did the weather suddenly become so cold without any warnings? There were only 3 people left in the house right now, including Pan Zhe, He Ching Man, and Cao Zhilan. The other people had either left with Jiyu Shao and Yu Qin or been kicked out of the house according to Shiyang's orders. Pan Zhe in a thick feather coat looked up to the mountain peak that reached the sky. He spoke up while his eyebrows were knitted tightly. Since last night, the temperature on the island has continually been decreasing for unknown reasons. It's peculiar. Cao Zhilan's face, on the contrary, was very calm. She even revealed a faint smile. It is surely related to Shiyang. The temperature cannot just naturally decrease this fast. I don't know what they did to make this island to have become peculiar like this. Miss Cao, You assume that Shi Yang is more outstanding than other men that you have ever met before? He Qing Man retracted her neck into the snow fox feather coat. Her eyes were looking at Cao Zhilan suspiciously. You should know that the Yang family and we are still enemies. Pan Zhe looked at Cao Zhilan bewilderedly and incomprehensively. He also tried to listen in to the conversation. Of course. Cao Zhilan nodded with a smile. She didn't try to hide her applause for Shi Yang. Her eyes radiated a strange light. When he was at the disaster realm, he could already resist one full-power seven-sword strike of Jiu Xiaomai and didn't lose his ground. In the chasm battlefield, only after 2 years, he had entered the Earth realm from the disaster realm, and now, he is at the peak Earth realm. This fast improvement is tremendous. Besides, his relations with the demonic Sound clan and the Wings race is out of our imagination. Regardless of how you speculate, you can't imagine that the demonic Sound clan and the Wings race obey his commands. Those words of Cao Zhilan had been hidden deep inside her for a very long time without being disclosed once. Cao Zhilan was better at observing than the others. In the abandoned land, she had soon realized that the attitudes of the pagan leaders Yi Tianmo, Di Shan, and Yu Ru towards Shi Yang had substantially changed. Before leaving the abandoned land, she had even found out that Di Shan and Yu Ru seemed to follow Shi Yang's orders. That discovery had frightened her very much. Although she didn't know what had happened among Shi Yang, Di Shan, and Yu Ru, she knew for sure that Shi Yang had these 2 big pagan tribes in his palm. The demonic Sound clan and the Wings race had 5 God Realm masters, together with a big number of Sky Realm and Nirvana warriors. This force was strong enough to be able to change the entire situation of the Endless Sea. Given the situation in which the demon dwellers were intruding everywhere, this force actually could affect the final fighting results of the entire Endless Sea. As having seen through this point, Cao Zhilan proactively proposed to get married to Shi Yang without being ashamed. She wanted to use her own beauty and her background forces to bind Shi Yang with her tightly, creating a firm foundation for the Cao family's future. Regretfully, her plan went to the bottom of the sea. It seemed like Cao Zhilan had just remembered something as she quietly smiled and shook her head. Her beautiful eyes were full of excitements. It is getting more and more interesting indeed. Just wait and see, I will make him kneel down underneath my dress. Cao Zhilan thought to herself and curled up her lips with confidence. That guy is definitely fooling around. It is also weird that the temperature is decreasing this fast. Ya Meng's face was frigid. He launched a horrendous strike on top of the icicle next to him. The huge and rough crest of the icicle, which looked like an enormous stone pillar supporting the sky, turned into ice rubble tumbling down. If it continues like this, all the plants on this island will be frozen to death. Even some of my Nirvana realm people can't stand it anymore, and they have to wear more clothes. People who are below the Nirvana realm have temporarily evacuated to another area. If the island keeps getting colder, we eventually have to move to the other place. Yi Tianmo's countenance was somber, his eyebrows knitted tightly. His soul consciousness kept searching under the Snow Dragon Mountain but wasn't able to locate anything. Di Shan's and Yu Ru's faces had also exposed their worries. Their soul cultivation was limited, and thus, they could find nothing. Shi Yang was standing in among the 5 leaders. He said with a low voice, "We have to come up with a solution indeed. The gathering at the 3 Gods sect's headquarters is coming closer. If the abnormal situation on this island can't be solved, I won't feel at ease to leave. That fellow is extremely cunning, hiding discreetly. I can vaguely sense it a little bit but hardly able to lock on it." Yi Tianmo shook his head and didn't know what else to do. "It seems that we have to try our secret scriptures." Kaba contemplated for a while before speaking. Ya Meng's and Yi Tianmo's eyes brightened. "What secret scripture?" Shi Yang was amazed and surprisingly asked, "Do you have a secret scripture that can be of use for real?" Kaba nodded respectfully and said, "The 3 of us cultivate different spiritual Upanishads. Yi Tianmo focuses on soul controlling, and Ya Meng focuses on soul attacking, while I specialize in soul diffusing. I used to cultivate a secret scripture named Leading Soul Guiding Gods. Using this scripture can connect my soul with the souls of other people, and thus my sense power will significantly increase. If Meng, Yi Tian Mo and I unite with each other, our soul power can cover the entire Hengluo Sea. If we concentrate carefully, we can discover even the smallest soul fluctuations surrounding us. Does this secret scripture have any side effects? Shi Yang instinctively asked. Kaba had the secret scripture but hadn't used it before. It meant that this kind of scripture was not as simple as what he had just said. The conjoint soul is very dangerous. If the performer is careless, his soul will be scattered. Kaba nodded with a forced smile. The soul force of each of us isn't much different from each other, but our auras have big differences. Once we conduct this scripture, we absolutely can't be affected by any other forces. Otherwise, the souls of the three of us will possibly become chaotic or be interchanged with each other. Exchange souls? Shi Yang shouted. Yes, there might be a situation where my host soul enters Meng's body, and then Meng's host soul will penetrate my body. Once our souls are exchanged, if we can't change them back to the original host body in 7 days, we have to accept the tragic reality. Kaba seriously said. Master, you let our people guard around. If no force penetrates this place, or no soul recklessly comes close, there won't be too many possible dangers. Yi Tian Mo wasn't too worried. The three of us will carry out the soul connection very quickly. Once our host souls can connect to each other, it's not that hard to find the life underneath. You only need to be more careful while we are performing. There shouldn't be any problems. That's how it is. Shi Yang nodded, then looked at Di Shan and Yu Ru and said with a smile, there won't be any big problems. No, there will not. Di Shan and Yu Ru nodded at the same time. Kaba's face was excited. He said decisively, let's begin. After saying that, Kaba sat down neatly first. Meng and Yi Tian Mo also found a place next to him to sit. The three of them formed a triangle, their palms were placed against the others. They started to use the secret scripture leading soul-guiding gods of the demonic sound clan. Each flow of the mysterious soul fluctuations was suddenly emitted from their bodies. These fluctuations were very violent and created visible waves in the middle of the air. These waves rippled like the water surface and slowly spread outwards. Shi Yang's face was dazed. His sea of consciousness was like it had entered the ocean, becoming a lonely leaf floating on the water. His host soul and the 5 devils in the sea of consciousness also swung non-stop. Being affected by the soul fluctuations of Yi Tian Mo, Kaba, and Meng, he felt that his soul was no longer under his control. On the contrary, Di Shan and Yu Ru were still unharmed. Yu Ru noticed Shi Yang's abnormal change. As she seemed to have felt something, she quietly swung her arm and drew a dazzling white halo covering his entire body. After that halo had covered his body, his sea of consciousness and host soul instantly stopped swaying. Everything returned to its normal status. With just the remnant of the soul fluctuations, they can still affect my sea of consciousness this much. The soul competencies of these 3 guys are really good. After taking a deep breath, Shi Yang smiled and said, if things keep following this way, when the soul fluctuations are successively transmitted into the earth, the life that is hiding there will be disclosed. Di Shan and Yu Ru nodded simultaneously. Their faces were getting more cautious, looking out at every direction. They were afraid that there would be someone coming close at this critical moment. At the northernmost point of the Kiara Sea, on a denuded and deserted island, the dazzling sunlight was hindered by the devilish auras which were as dense as the black clouds. Inside a mountain cave on this island, a bunch of mighty demon dwellers, who had 3-meter-tall bodies, dark blue skin, single horns on their heads, together with peculiar weapons made out of white bones in their hands, were kneeling down on the ground. On a platform, which was created by piling up bloody bones, a hefty 3.5-meter-tall guy with a curved buffalo-like horn on his head was sitting up straight. He was bare from the waist up. Finger-size green veins massively emerged like worms slowly creeping on his body. He looked very ferocious. Earth-shaking murderous auras like undispersed smoke hovered around him. This guy's face was filled with numerous interlaced scars which looked like the lines of a human palm. With a quick glance, This guy looked like a devil crawling from the Nine Serenities hell with full of heinous crimes. His dark blue eyes shot out a horrendous brutal aura. Patriarch, all the Dragon Horn clan's people have already assembled. They are waiting for your commands. Below the bone platform, one guy of the Dragon Horn clan was loudly reporting. His bloodthirsty face was very excited. On the bone platform, the patriarch of the Dragon Horn clan, one of the demon masters of the fourth demon area, Ma Chi-jie, was about to say something but suddenly sensed something else. His dark blue eyes were as if they were advancing through thousands of rivers and mountains, piercing straight forward towards an icy snow island. Conjoint soul! Ma Chi-jie shouted, his eyes displayed an extreme fear. The demonic sound clan disappeared a long time ago. They were one of the 4 big branches of the Dark Dwellers. How come they have appeared at the Kiara Sea all of a sudden? Chapter 291, Looking at Each Other from a Space Distance. Chapter 291, Looking at Each Other from a Space Distance. Master Ma Chi-jie. An ear-splitting shriek came out from a thick layer of black cloud in the sky. A demon dweller with only one eye appeared from inside those devilish clouds. His face was full of green patterns, his body was as skinny as a thin bamboo which continuously flashed on and off inside the cloud layers. Patriarch, when can we depart? That one-eyed demon dweller showed the respect on his face, clasping his hands in front of his chest while appearing inside the thick devilish clouds. Tell Xie Yang to wait there. Ma Chi-jie raised his head, howling loudly. A flow of evil auras dashed straight through the cloud layers tremendously, making that pagan Xie Yang spinning non-stop within the devilish clouds. He could only stabilize his body after a long while and then glided away with a miserable face. He had instantly disappeared without leaving a single trace. Ma Chi-jie harumphed coldly, sat down stately on the bone platform and suddenly swung his arm, launching forth a strike into the air. A black surge of lightning was then shot out from the void. Time and space seemed to be torn apart. Skulls that were freckled with blood gradually emerged. These skulls all had different sorts of shapes which had been collected from many different races. The pupils of many of these skulls were still very lively, some of the skulls still had their scalps attached to it, which seemed to be broken off from many of the people's necks not that long ago. A bunch of skulls that were dripping with blood were moving behind Ma Chi-jie like a halo of the Buddha. Many streams of vicious black smoke rose up from the empty sockets of hundreds of bloody skulls and then seeped into Ma Chi-jie's ears like devilish souls without leaving any visible traces. Ma Chi-jie's crazy black eyes gradually became transparent and seemingly contained an endless amount of accumulated soul powers. Devil transparent eyes. Ma Chi-jie's hands clasped in front of his chest while his eyes closed tightly. Hundreds of skulls had suddenly stopped moving. A bundle of black lights flew out from Ma Chi-jie's nape, slicing through the air, passing billions of miles, and soon disappeared without leaving any known traces. Dash. The Snow Dragon Island. Di Shan, Yu Ru, and Shi Yang were standing in 3 separated directions behind Yi Tianmo, Kaba, and Ya Meng. They all looked serious and cautious. The dazzling lights had formed a visible halo that covered the top of the 6 people's heads and the entire surrounding area. Many beams of the condensed pure powers were constantly shooting out from the 10 fingers of Di Shan and Yu Ru, aiming towards the curtain of lights in the sky to increase and stabilize the defensive forces so that these forces were able to prevent all kinds of movements. 3 minutes had passed. The 3 souls of Yi Tianmo, Kaba, and Ya Meng were connecting to each other to perform the leading soul-guiding gods of the demonic sound clan. This technique would use their souls as a conducting path to search for the anomalies underneath the earth of the Snow Dragon Island. They obviously wanted to locate the elusive peculiar life which was hiding there. Those rippling waves of forces were marvelous. Wherever they had suffused, the beating melody of the earth also got affected as well. Under those waves, even the movements of a tiny worm creeping under thousands of miles deep inside the earth would be countlessly amplified. Kaba's eyebrows tightly knitted as he seemed to have found something out and thus revealed a cold smile. Shi Yang's face was then excited. He patiently waited for the news. After having a quick glance, Di Shan and Yu Ru were focusing intensively, releasing more of their powers towards the curtain of lights above their heads to prevent any unexpected events. A cold wind appeared in the bright and clear sky all of a sudden that made the sun at noon seem to be weakened a lot. Thick black clouds from nowhere dispersed throughout the sky, completely covering all of the sunlight. The Snow Dragon Island was originally freezing. However, right now, even the sun couldn't be seen, and thus, it became gloomier and more glacial. Many people of the demonic Sound Clan felt that the freeze was being absorbed into their bodies. They thus couldn't help but violently clatter. As the black clouds reached the mountain peak, a flow of powerful devilish aura dispersed out from everywhere. Shan's face changed in panic. He subconsciously looked up to the sky with a frightened light in his eyes. Yuru's delicate body had also trembled a little bit. She had also sensed something and thus said, "This power is impetuous. This person's cultivation is extremely profound." Demon dwellers. Shan slowly nodded with a confused face. "We finally meet." After being in a daze, Yuru seemed to remember something but then shook her head, released a sigh and said, "We can't avoid confrontation with him although we don't want it. I don't know if that guy still recognizes us or not." Shan's face was somber, and he didn't reply. Shi Yang was standing behind Yi Tianmo, quietly listening to the conversation between Shan and Yuru. His countenance became strange with many thoughts coming across his mind. At this moment, a big eye appeared amid the thick black clouds in the sky, inside of which emerged a clear scene, an isolated island with dense devilish clouds, a platform made of blood and bones, a sturdy mighty person with a curved horn on his head and hundreds of motionless bloody skulls behind that person. The bone platform was packed to the brim with the Dragon Horn Clan's people. Their eyes were all bloodthirsty and excited. They couldn't help but lick the corner of their mouths like wild beasts eagerly being about to get out of the cage. In the huge eye, the scene was very legible, even countless scars on the face of the man who was sitting on the bone platform could be seen. The wings race. The mighty person inside the eye suddenly howled a thunderbolt sound and stood up at the same time, displaying his increasing agitation. He couldn't help but raise his head while crazily laughing. From inside of the eye, he pointed to Shan and Yuru and then screamed, "I am the patriarch, Ma Chi-Jie of the Dragon Horn Clan, one of the 8 clans of the Demon Dwellers. Your Wings race was originally one of the 8 clans of the Demon Dwellers. Regardless of where you were from, you should unite with us in spirits and efforts for the Demon Dwellers' great matter of reunification, for the Demon Dwellers' eternal suzerainty which is to wipe out all of the endless sea's obstacles, establishing the foundations for the Demon Master to arrive." Shi Yang's imposing body couldn't help but shake violently, his eyes suddenly shot out an unimaginable light. From thousands of years ago, our Wings race had soon separated from the demon area. When we were confined in the abandoned land and had almost perished, we didn't get any help from the demon area. Since then, the Wings race had no longer belonged to the demon area nor followed any commands of the demon masters. Shan raised his head looking up to the sky and said with a somber face, "Sass." Ma Chi-Jie inside the eye was very angry, howling loudly and jumping up. His sturdy, powerful muscular body seemingly wanted to explode. Green veins of his half-naked top vibrated constantly, horrendous auras from inside the eye wanted to fly out striking the others' faces. Being one of the 8 clans of the Demon Dwellers, your Wings race must follow the commands of the Demon Masters as long as you are still alive. Although you are not in the demon area, you still have to conduct yourselves decently and submit as soon as you receive the Demon Master's orders. Ma Chi-Jie was standing on the bone platform, growling and roaring. Hundreds of motionless skulls started moving. Each shining black light was shot out from the sockets of hundreds of those skulls, passing the distance, advancing towards the Snow Dragon Island through that big floating eye. "You have just brought disgrace upon yourselves." Shan's eyes were frigid, his black wings suddenly stretched out, projecting a huge black wave. Numerous shining lights showered downwards but were all swept up and was completely swallowed up by Shan's black wave. Ma Chi-Jie was growling and howling crazily on the bone platform, the devilish aura was skyscraping. However, he couldn't directly take action, The different kinds of his attacks from the eye were useless and were not even enough to scratch Di Shan's itches. The demon masters will soon know of the appearance of the Wings race. You wait and see. After howling angrily for a long while, Ma Chi-je knew that he couldn't harm Di Shan. Thus, he just stood on the bone platform and coldly intimidated Di Shan. The demonic Sound Clan, one of the 4 big branches of the Dark Dwellers, AVI Dark King, will be soon informed about this as well. By that time, let's see you how you can deal with it. Ma Chi-je shrieked out loud, slowly retreating his forces. The floating eye became smaller little by little. The black clouds that were covering the sky of the Snow Dragon Island started dispersing and dissolving gradually. The last investigating flow of the soul forces spread out from the eye, covering the entire surrounding area of Di Shan and Yu Ru, and then seemingly tried to remember the aura on each of their bodies. This investigating flow of soul forces did not have any violent, attacking powers. Instead, it was merely a sensing power. This flow of power coated the entire area, including Shi Yang. He immediately felt that his soul was being explored. His sea of consciousness surged up uncontrollably. His host soul inside the sea of consciousness lightly swayed while the soul stream from the host soul quietly emitted several beams of forces which then rolled into the sea of consciousness. The eye in the sky gradually faded away and eventually turned into a bundle of black lights, flying tens of thousands of miles away. On the bone platform, Ma Chi-je stretched out his arms, soul lights which were like streams of black water pouring down into his palms from the sky. He started to sense these lights. What? Ma Chi-je's eyebrows were tightly slammed together. He carefully sensed the exploring soul forces which had been retreated and then vaguely realized a flow of a familiar aura. This soul aura, I've met it before. Ma Chi-je had a suspicious feeling, mused in silence for a while but still couldn't figure out whom that soul aura belonged to. After a long moment, Ma Chi-je shook his head and stopped investigating any further. Instead, he gradually leaped up from the bone platform and howled, "Find Xia Yang for me." A multitude of the Dragon Horn clan's people excitedly growled in response. They eagerly followed Ma Chi-je, holding different kinds of sabers on which blood was still dripping down as if those sabers had been used to cut the chickens' heads off recently. On the Snow Dragon Island, Shi Yang stabilized his surging sea of consciousness. His face looked a little strange. He wondered if Ma Chi-je had discovered his existence or not. Previously, he had almost captured Ma Chi-je's soul by using the soul-gathering pearl. At that time, Ma Chi-je had said that he would let him suffer all the demon area's tortures sooner or later and had sworn not to let go of this promise. Even the demon master Bo Zun seemed to have paid attention to him as well as remembering his soul. When Ma Chi-je's true body had entered the endless sea this time, he was now an earth-shaking murderous evil and no longer a descended soul like before. Ma Chi-je was now harder to handle hundreds of times than before. Although the soul-gathering pearl had returned to its normal status, Shi Yang couldn't use it to deal with Ma Chi-je. That Ma Chi-je entered this world, together with his forces, wasn't something that ordinary people could have resisted. Ma Chi-je's exploring soul flow had swept over Shi Yang's body. If Ma Chi-je could discover his origin through that flow of soul aura, Shi Yang was afraid that Ma Chi-je would get crazy and go straight to the Snow Dragon Island to immediately kill him. Hard times are coming. Shi Yang knitted his eyebrows, his face then became grave. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,